If we could call the Public Health and Safety Committee of the Grand Terrace County Board of Commissioners to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bonnie, will you call the roll, please?
Klaus?
Here.
Crawford?
Here.
Johnson?
Present.
Kropa?
Here.
Lathrop?
Yes.
Maxbauer? Here. Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. The next order of business would be the approval of the May 6th regular session of the Public Health and Safety Committee. As we know, we did not hold a meeting in June, so I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the May 6th meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Johnson, supported by
Second.
Kropa. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Brings us to the first opportunity for public comment. I'll let Bonnie read the rules. There will be a second opportunity later in the meeting, and we will take public comment on an agenda item as is being discussed. Please.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4, Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Having heard the rules for public comment, is there anyone wishing to make comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move forward with the agenda. The first thing is the approval of the agenda. Are there additions to the agenda? I would like to add 2 items under new business. One is the ad hoc committee in regard to the financial analysis, and the second is the billing from Paula Segala.
Do we have the billing anywhere that we can see?
Dean has it. It's been submitted.
It's been submitted to where?
Finance department has the billing. So
Go up.
we can at least discuss it.
I'm not prepared to vote on anything I haven't seen beforehand.
Well, we don't have to vote on it. It's just a discussion item at this point. We have entertain a motion for to approve the agenda.
I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Motion by Maxbauer, supported by Klaus. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Brings us to the consent calendar, if you will, please, Bonnie.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval, is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. Number 1, Commission on Aging monthly program report through May. B, approval. Number 1, Commission on Aging staffing plan amendment. Number 2, Health Department, Mitchell and McCormick Annual Maintenance and Support Agreement.
Having heard the consent calendar, is there any item that the public wishes to have removed? Any item commissioners wish to have removed? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as provided.
So moved.
Motion by Klaus, supported
Second.
by Johnson. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Crawford?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Kropa?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yes.
Maxbauer?
Yes.
Klaus?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. Moving on down the agenda, the next item is action item, Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office request for a FTE for a collections coordinator.
Good evening, Lieutenant Ritter from the Sheriff's Office in the jail.
Are we
I have
technologically
one that
challenged,
doesn't want to
Todd?
work.
They just take a while. Maybe
There it
we
goes. All right, so tonight we want to talk to you again about the prisoner reimbursement program. We came in front of the board in 2011 and originally presented this. At that time, we had asked for this position and explained that we thought we could greatly increase the amount of revenue we collected if we started this program. At that time, the position wasn't approved, but the board wanted us to continue to look at what we could do. We came back in 2012 with a plan. That plan, again, we requested a body. Body wasn't approved at that time, but we did receive a resolution, Resolution 23 of 2013. That resolution basically just gave us the authority to cut deals with inmates on their housing fees. So starting in 2012, with the board's permission to start actively working a plan, we looked at everything we could do to increase our collections revenue. I want to give you a little bit of a history before we get into what we've done. In 2011, this is the actual slide I brought in and what we projected we would do if we started this program. At that time, through February of 2011, our collections were at about $60,000. We ended up, for that year, collecting $61,875. We had projected that we were going to increase those revenues up to 20% eventually, and kind of staggered how we were going to do that. These are our actual collection status, our actual collection effort statistics. As you can see, we have met or exceeded everything we had projected in 2011. We have gone from 6% collection to 17% collection over the last 4 years. In 2012, we started collecting 25% of commissary deposits. We saw a substantial increase because of that. In 2013, we offered a one-time 50% deal to clear off a lot of old debt from the books. We had a lot of success with that. 2014, we dedicated a correction officer to this position. The correction officer's primary function is to identify those inmates who have the ability to pay and choose not to, and pursue them civilly to get legal judgments against. Initially, we had started sitting down with those inmates and trying to construct deals with them prior to taking them to court. We were having a great success constructing the deals with them, not a lot of success on the follow-through. So we kind of changed strategies a little bit and started filing lawsuits. The lawsuits then gave us consent judgments, which the officer was able to sit down and then devise a new plan with them. And that's been much more successful. We'll go back just a second there. Right now we have $304,402 in consent judgments that we still need to sit down with those inmates now and work out payment plans with. Right now we have just shy of $10,000 we're collecting annually because of those consent judgments. Yes?
Any idea why the steep decline prior to the change in the plan? You lost almost 50% of your collected revenue there. I can't quite see the year, but I think it's 05?
Yeah, from 2005 to 2011, we were, just over $50,000 in reduction in 6 years. Historically, what we saw were we had less and less people paying their bills.
Did you have someone allocated to collections at that time?
We did not. What we were doing at that time is simply sending a bill, and those that didn't pay the bill, we turned over to a collections agency. What we found, and that was presented back to the board in 2011, were what we were getting from the collection agencies were roughly about 5% of a return. I believe it was in 2011, we turned over $575,000, and we received $10,000 back on that from the collections agency. So the return from the collections agency just wasn't high enough for us. That's why we really tried to pursue this. Here's kind of the breakdown over the last 5 years. You can see in 2011, we were at $61,875. 2012, that's when we started taking the 25% of the commissary deposits. We had a substantial increase. A little additional bump in 2013 was from the one-time 50% deals. 2014, we realized 126,000, and now in 2015, we're projecting to be at 137,000. I did have a chance to sit down with Dean Bott, go through the numbers, have him look at all the revenues and collections, and have him validate what we have, and he said we're right on track here.
Does that number include the commissary?
That does. Okay. That does. Now, the number I really want to focus on is that $304,000. A great deal of effort went into getting the judgments for those $304,000. And it takes some time to get those judgments, and then it takes more time to sit down and start working out those deals. So we're just at the point where we're now really getting into cutting the deals with those consent judgments. So we're going to start seeing a significant amount of additional revenue based on those. So in 2011, we billed $611,766 in general housing fees. We collected about a total of 9% on that. That would be from collection agencies and our efforts. In 2014, we billed $740,000. We collected $126,211, which is 17% of that billing. That's just housing fees. Some figures that aren't in here, the deputy that's running this program also collects medical fees. We weren't able to accurately break that out and give you a solid statistic, so I didn't want to skew those numbers and give you inaccurate information. But we are seeing an increase in revenue there as well. During the first 5 months of 2015, we billed $298,141, and we've collected $53,114 of that. We've also collected an additional $2,900 towards general housing fees for a total of $56,019, or 18% of our total billings for this year. By month comparison from last year to this year, you can see we're seeing a substantial increase, especially in the last couple months, and that is because we are now sitting down and working out those deals with our consent judgments. Those numbers are going to continue to grow. So in 2012, we asked for a position. The board at that time wasn't able to grant our request for a position, so we moved the correction officer in there. At that time, we were asking for $51,800 for an FTE. The position's being filled right now at the cost of $71,965. Right now, as many of you know, the jail is experiencing some serious staffing issues. We are down 7 bodies off the working schedule. That's over 20% of our staff. So to have another correction officer pulled out to do something else adds to that. When we originally came here and asked for this position, we knew this position would pay for itself. That's why we dedicated the manpower to show that. We had the manpower at that time to do that. It's no longer makes as much fiscal sense to do that. This position is making in excess of over $20,000 in what it would cost to fill it at this time. Through 2014, jail housing fee revenues have increased by $64,366, with an additional $9,720 for our lawsuits. That's taking our total revenue to $74,056 beyond what we collected prior to starting this program. We also expect to increase by at least an additional $12,000 this year in the collections efforts on the legal consent judgments. So again, I think we've shown that not only is this position self-sustaining, but profitable. One of the things we really looked at when we started this program is we didn't want it to be a burden on the courts. We didn't want it to be a burden on the prosecuting attorney's office. We've worked very closely with the prosecuting attorney's office, especially with Mr. Forsyth, on really streamlining this process. The correction officer does all the legwork up front. They prepare as much of the paperwork as they possibly can, and then it gets reviewed by the prosecuting attorney's office. We've sat down with the prosecutor and Mr. Forsyth several times throughout this process, asked if it was burdening their office beyond what they were comfortable with, and we've been assured that it's not been an issue. We did run into a little resistance with circuit court at first. We've worked out those issues and have found that by joining some issues with how we find people and making sure that we're not fighting over the same piece of pie and working together, those issues have been resolved. So the bottom line with this program is it's really, by dedicating a body to it, we are making sure we are not going after people that don't have the ability to pay or are already over-obligated. And without having a body do that, we simply go back to sending bills to people that are not going to have the ability to pay. And we waste or we lose that revenue from the lawsuits not having somebody to have the ability to sit down and work on those deals. It takes a lot of time to sit down and figure out who has that ability to pay and is just kind of thumbing their nose at the system and letting the taxpayers pick up that bill. And those are the people we really want to make sure we're not letting off the hook. So again, we're here tonight to ask the county Board of Commissioners to approve a full-time FTE for a collection specialist at the wage and benefit package totaling $52,889.82 to the jail staffing to plan to sustain this program. Due to the staffing needs in the jail, we're asking that the board take effective immediately. Action effective immediately. We did ask for that on the consent or on the agenda, and it was unfortunately overlooked, so I apologize for that.
I got it.
Christie, you want to comment?
I'll just echo some of the comments of Lieutenant Ritter. We really have streamlined the process, and we really have worked well together to get it streamlined and to work out the issues with our two judges. I also note this, that when we enter into consent judgments with inmates at the jail, we're really cognizant of the fact that we are dealing with some poor people. And so we are not pushing for large sums of money up front. We don't ask for any type of penalty or interest. We really try to be really fair with the inmates to say, look, what can you pay? How much time do you need? And so if there is a concern out there that we're really running roughshod over people, it's not true. It's really the opposite of what we're trying to do.
Commissioners?
Dan?
In this process, Todd or Chris, are you using an attorney to talk to the court to make this happen?
Yeah. Yes. At the start, I was handling all the cases, so I was involved in drafting the complaint, getting it filed with the court, meeting with the defendants to try to work out a settlement, or if no answer was filed, then trying to get that default judgment. At this time, Charlie Hamlin, who's an APA in the office, has taken over the actual duty of going to court. I still play somewhat of a supervisory role and do have some oversight in the process.
So it not only involves, at this point, one of your people, but it also involves people from our prosecutor's office.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Carol?
So what this person does is definitely different than what a collection agency does, is that
Correct.
correct? In that
Correct.
they file lawsuits, they really try to work it out rather than badger them, which is what I
Exactly.
think a collection agency
Exactly.
probably
You
does.
know, we try to be very cognizant of not tracking people down at their employment and mess with their employment. We don't harass them all hours of the night. It's trying to get somebody to just say, hey, you have an obligation here, we're willing to sit down at a table with you and work out this obligation in a manner which you can afford and still take care of it. But again, that first part of that process is even determining who can do that. When we turn cases over to collections, they don't care. Collection agency doesn't care what somebody's ability to pay is. They're going to hound to try to collect that debt. The return on that's very small.
Well, it sounds like we're spending a lot of money to try to collect money. Do you know how much your office is spending?
You know, the good news is, for the most part, the filing fees that typically a party has to file in circuit court has been waived by the court, so that's a good thing. My hours spent on this, it's minimal. It's a few hours a month. May get a question from jail staff. I may get a question from Charlie Hamlin. I may give him some oversight. His hours, I would say on average, maybe 10 hours a week. You know, again, we're not, if you look at a typical civil case where you got to go through some discovery and depositions and filing motions, we're not doing any of that. It's either we want to try to work out with the inmate quickly as possible and really come to a fair agreement as soon as possible. Or if that inmate doesn't respond, well, then we're going to get the default judgment against the inmate. And it's really, let me check, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've only really had one case where we've gotten some serious pushback
Correct.
from an inmate.
Yep.
Are there other collection specialists in the county?
Correct. We actually got that position from HR. That's
And
what-
would they be able to take on any of this role?
To try to partner with
Or is it just so
someone else.
specialized, I guess?
It's
that
really different. Everyone kind of has their own teeth based on where they work as to what they can do. You know, for the courts, if someone chooses not to pay court fines, court costs, the court can put them in jail. We are one of the only entities I'm aware of, law enforcement, that can say, you haven't paid your bill, we can actually seize property. That's a big stick. We try to use the carrot, sit down at the table and work it out equitably. We haven't gone to seizing any property, but that's something we can do. Another thing we can do, and we did do last year for some people that chose not to follow up to obligations we'd set, is we garnished some tax wages, or some income tax returns. So we have some things we can do that we can't do for other people, and they have some things they cannot do for us, so it's really hard to kind of
So
blend
it's definitely a
those.
full-time position and
It
pretty
is.
much a waste of a correction officer's
It is,
training and expertise
abilities.
to get into that, so.
correct.
Okay.
Yes, Doctor?
Dan?
As it happens, I was approached by a well-known, respected attorney that understands county quite well, and he felt that he'd like to bid on this process. He felt he could do all the things you're saying, Todd, has the same philosophy as you, and do it for less. One of the things that attracts me about that is you're not having a full-time FTE that gets step raises and all those things. And if after a year with this person, or a person like him, we didn't like it, we can terminate. However, if you have a full-time FTE union employee, it's a little harder to change that. I think we should consider because the fact that we are heading toward budgeting for outcomes or a results-based budgeting, this might be a perfect type of scenario to look at. So just for conversation's sake.
If I could speak to that again, we have certain things that, as a law enforcement agency, we can do that nobody else that contracts us is going to be able to do. One of those things is file these lawsuits and get these consent judgments. You're not going to find another entity that can do that the way we're doing it as cheaply and effectively as we can do that. They don't have the authority to do it. That's why we looked at this program specifically. This program has been modeled in many other countries. Macomb County was the leader in it, and that's why we followed their program. They've been very successful down there. They've recognized the same growth rate that we've realized, and they're capped out around 30% of collections now. We're on pace for that. So I'd really hate to see, with as far as we've taken this program and with as much money as we have out there in consent judgment, to sit down and work on payment plans and realize that income, to walk away from that. Because those consent judgments, if we're not working the plan, basically go away. Unless I'm incorrect on that.
No, I mean, yeah, it's, you know, by all means, you know, if the board wants to consider alternatives, by all means, do it. But how we've set it up is we're doing it at a very small cost. We're not, as I said earlier, the things that drive up the cost of litigation, the discovery, it's the filing the motions, it's those type of things, and we're not doing any of that. We're going into court once, maybe twice. Either we're walking out with a consent judgment or a default judgment, and that's it. And as I said, the court has waived the fees for us associated with going in court. You know, they may be able to do that for somebody who comes in from the outside, but then again, they may not. Again, I'm not discouraging you or anybody from exploring the alternatives. I'm just saying right now, it's working well and it's being done at a cheap cost.
Yeah, I just quickly ran the numbers, and I mean, you're looking at a little over $25 an hour, and I would love to see a proposal, but I hate to see a lawyer's per hour charge that could compare to that. I mean, I think if it is a full-time position, I think it'd really be expensive, but I'm always willing to look at something like that. But
Dean, we currently have, what, 3 collections specialists and working with our courts? 3 or 2?
I don't know exactly. Some of those programs have kind of been, over the years, they seem to, the staff are rededicated to other activities. I think we had 3. We're probably down to 2. I guess my opinion on this, the sheriff came, and Todd, I remember when they first came, they said, hey, let us try this. They've proven that they've increased our revenue realization here. We have somewhat of a captive audience with our jail population. And our population is pretty...
No pun intended.
It wasn't intended, but to be that. But when, you know, our civil counsel tells us that we're not trying to gouge these folks and we're trying to work with them. And I believe that the sheriff, to his credit, and Lieutenant Ritter and Captain Hall, who's in the back, very mindful of our situation. And I mean, I think we told them that we want you to increase our revenue here from our inmates, and they've done that. The success of this program can be tracked on an annual basis, and you know, I'm sure that the jail, the sheriff and Lieutenant Ritter will be very willing to report to us annually as to their success, and I'm fully supportive. I reviewed this with Lieutenant Ritter, and I think their results have proven or demonstrated that they're going to get the job done and continue to realize more revenue from this than it costs us to collect that revenue, which helps support the overall cost of running a mandated service, our jail.
Lisa?
Well, I called Todd to talk about this. I want to support this program, believe me. Perhaps I'm the only one that thought this, but I'm not concerned about being nice to them. You know, if you don't want to pay the bill, don't go to jail. I think it's really easy. When people don't pay their property taxes, we go after them. When people don't pay their fees and fines and permits and licenses, we go after them. I'm not concerned about going after them. As we discussed, we should go after them. I think that our prosecutor has made such an amazing change in our county. You now know that when you commit a crime in our county, you're going to do the time. And I think we need to also add to that, you're going to pay for it as well. Whatever landed them in jail most likely affected a victim of some sort in our county, and they didn't get the opportunity to decide whether they wanted to have a payment plan for what happened to them, and I'm really not concerned about the payment plan for the inmates. But what I am concerned about is 1 FTE. We have departments throughout our county that have many employees working and doing the job of 2 or 3 people. And when you add a full-time employee, you don't just add their pay, you also add their legacy. And as we move forward with looking at legacies at the county, perhaps it's just unfortunate timing. But I am having a hard time. I echo similar sentiments to yours as far as why we can't have somebody off of the payroll being an advocate, searching out what they're able to do, you know, who's able to pay, which, you know, a lot of people aren't able to pay their mortgage. It's $20 a day. It's $20 a day. I would venture to say that if they didn't commit the crime and weren't in our jail, wherever they were living was going to cost them $20 a day anyways, so I'm a little confused as to why that's all of a sudden a burden to them. But regardless, I am concerned about the fact that this is a full-time position with benefits. I think that you've made a great case. I think that it creates revenue, but I think that there is value in every one of our full-time employees at the county. So this is a tough one. It's a tough one for me. I told you, I still don't know how I'm going to vote.
Just to speak to that real quick, I agree. There are agencies out there that do this. They do it for a living. We've used them. We were using them the whole time through the decline of our revenue. Historically, collection agencies turn over between 6% and 8%. That's what you see out of them. That's what we've seen all along. We're now billing almost $750,000 a year. So to realize 20% revenue on that, or 30% revenue on that versus 6%, to me, makes a lot of sense. That not only pays for that position, but it still increases the revenue the county's going to see.
Dan?
A couple questions. Mm-hmm. This won't be a person with a badge, will it?
No, it'd be a civilian position.
Civilian position, union?
That I don't know for sure, sir.
Well, I think we all agree it shouldn't be a corrections officer.
Yes.
They're
Yes,
highly
I think
trained
we're all
and
on that
skilled
page.
to do a really important job, and a lot of people can collect bills, and not everybody can deal with inmates, so.
But if this person is a member of the sheriff's office, they still get that ability to file these suits and collect in the manner we can as a law enforcement agency.
Ron?
You said you're down currently 7 correction officers.
Off of staffing, correct.
Are you looking to build 7 back up?
Right. We have 3 in the training program right now, which hopefully we'll have in shift strength around the 1st of September. We are currently have 3 additional in background investigations, and we are actively taking applications trying to fill that last position. Or we'll lose another body in 5 weeks when Captain Hall retires.
So if we were to provide you opportunity for a collection person, could that take the place of one of the correction officers if you're
Well, it moves that person right back into staffing, yes. And that, I take that back. There's going to be a training period, but it gets that person back into the fold, into our staffing.
But where I'm going is that you're 7 people short if you get a collection person. Now, can you be 6 people short? Or are you still going to be struggling and wanting to get that 7th person?
We are still going to be looking to retain that FTE as a correction officer, yes.
Okay.
Bob? Any possibility of starting this at a part-time position and then checking in a year to see how it goes and then, go from there. And I know you don't want to do that.
By all means, we could. But if we move back to a year ago, we said, let's see if the program works. And we've given it a year. The program's working. It's working the way we're working it, and it's going to continue to grow. So to stop that, or to say, okay, we're going to cut it back to half-time, we're going to be doing half as much work, collecting half as much money. That's going to affect where our revenue is today. We're going to start seeing that decrease. Again, it just means that $304,000 that's out there, we're going to have only half as much time to sit down and work out those deals.
I recall the discussions that we had about the, I'm going to call lack of performance by Core Recovery. You know, they just simply did not give us a return on our investment. We turned over hundreds of thousands of dollars and got next to nothing back. I think if I remember right, 1 year we got $5,000 or something like that, and we'd sent $250,000 worth of charges to them, you know. So I too am concerned about legacy costs and additional personnel being added to the staff, particularly in these economic times, and as we review all of the departments for their staffing needs and their staffing performances. But I don't see how we're going to collect this money. And this is money that these people owe Grand Traverse County. Hands down, they owe it to us. Judgments have been drawn that they owe us the money. You know, the problem is, are they going to walk in here every Friday and give us a payment? Probably not, unless we have a method by which to collect it. So, it's up to the commission. How do you wish to proceed?
Yeah, I guess just one last thing.
I have one comment too on page 61 in your packet. This is a non-contract position, so it's not a union position. It's non-contract hourly.
Thank you, Dean.
One other concern I've heard is, what happens when we collect all the money? Well, we're never going to collect all the money. We bill over $700,000
If the jail's empty next month, then we'll be able to.
Every year we're going to bill that. Every year we're going to have people that choose not to pay that bill. Every year we're going to have to pursue them. So, you know, the sustainability of the program, us collecting all the money, that's not an issue. Hopefully, we're going to realize our goals of upwards of high 20s to 30%.
When I was there at the jail, I think Captain Hall said that, I should say I was on the other side, right?
On your tour of the
There's a
jail?
couple of the cell blocks. I'm not sure which side of the fence you're on.
I was on the good
there.
side of the jail with Captain Hall, and I believe he was talking about how if you're an inmate and you choose to, say, work in the kitchen or do some jobs, it waives your housing fee. Am I correct in that?
That is correct.
How many people are doing that, and how many fees are we waiving just by that?
Our inmate workers, we average, I would say, roughly 15. And, you know, they have real varying lengths of stay. I don't know that we've actually looked at how many housing fees we're waiving on an annual basis. What we normally look at with the inmate workers is the cost savings the county realizes when we put those inmate workers out in the community to work. And we say we've given so many hours to the community, even at a minimum wage, and that's in our annual report each year, how much dollars we've saved the community by providing those inmate workers.
Yeah, I guess at this point, I don't want to take in, I know what you're trying to say about taking somebody off of the staffing plan, but I know that's probably one of the toughest jobs next to the police officers is keeping them corralled in the jail. I guess I would support this if we could somehow maybe even have a year probationary period or something to review it in a year and see if the numbers are adding up. But
Is that a motion?
no, go ahead.
Chris will make
Chris?
Okay. I would move, provided I can see that screen, that the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners add a full-time FTE for collections specialist, non-K, with a wage and benefit package totaling $52,889.82 to the jail's staffing plan to sustain this program for the period of 1 year, effective immediately.
Support.
So you got 1 year,
I
Todd.
have a motion by Max Bauer. Do I have support by
Support.
Crawford? Further discussion?
Right, and I told Bonnie I wasn't gonna talk tonight, so.
Lie.
I was on vacation, so.
I've tried that too, but it doesn't usually work for me.
No, I think, we've said it several times here, it's definitely a waste of a correction officer to be doing this job. So we do have to come up with something, and we're almost in that catch-22 where if you don't, you're leaving this money on the table. So you're kind of in a rock and a hard place on this, so.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Immediate approval.
Oh,
Oh,
Yes.
immediate approval, we better do roll call. I'm sorry.
Johnson,
Yes.
Cropa,
I will say yes, because it's 1 year.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Klaus,
Yes.
Crawford,
yes.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you in a year, Todd.
Yeah.
I'll be ready.
We'll see. I'm thinking we're probably going to see him before
I
that.
think so.
No, I mean with numbers.
Yes.
Todd will be rolling in the cash that he brings.
Yeah.
Good job, Lieutenant, thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is the Health Department. Grand Traverse Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan for immediate approval. Greg's going to talk to us about what a mitigation plan is.
Good evening, Greg Bird, Grand Traverse County Emergency Management Coordinator. Finally, this process started with a update or renewal of our plan about a year and a half ago. Our plan expired in 2011, and because of several delays, change in my position, grant funding, it got delayed. So we've rapidly tried to get this approved. The proposed or the draft plan was approved by last year's board, so some of you may remember my presentation, and I don't want to bore you with details among this agenda. But it went through a process after going through this board, through the state of Michigan Emergency Management Homeland Security Department, and after their approval, it went to FEMA. We just got approval back from them. Unfortunately, we don't have FEMA's letter, official letter that becomes a part of the plan, because that's an additional 5 to 6 week waiting period for that to come in. But we're asking for immediate approval of the resolution tonight because we currently sit with an expired hazard mitigation plan, which precludes us from applying for mitigation grants, or in the event of a disaster, it eliminates us from being eligible for FEMA mitigation monies. So quickly, mitigation is prevention and putting tools and items in place to prevent damages. So the easiest example is that with a current natural hazard mitigation plan, we can work with county roads, we can work with the planning department, and we can identify projects and get grant money for. So like culverts that are normally the corrugated metal that last 10 to 20 years, we can apply and get money to, instead of putting them in, put concrete. Or we can get monies to buy destroyed flood properties or abandoned properties in flood zones, et cetera, et cetera. So the planning team that you see in here got together and we went through all of our hazards. We ranked our natural hazards that this area is susceptible for. And then we ranked some mitigation projects that are on our list that we'd like to accomplish. So the resolution is a stock resolution that's went through our region. Benzie County used the very same language on their plan and got approved. The first step for our county is getting commissioner resolution on hand to adopt our plan that's good for 5 years. And then the process starts of going to each of our municipal jurisdictions, seeing if they want to sign on as well and adopt the resolution plan. So unless there's any other comments, Dr. Johnson caught one typo, and for the life of me, I don't know how it happened.
How I caught it, or how?
That was the question. We're going to clarify this statement.
For some reason, out of the chart on page 13, Paradise Township and their demographics was not there. And I have the fresh copy that it is now in there. So that was rapidly corrected, and that does not, it does not have to go back to FEMA and the state for approval. It's just a typo that was corrected, so.
Ron?
Yes, sir.
The thing that I saw in going through your table 19, you're referring to soil erosion in different parts of the plan, and you don't have the soil erosion department there, you have the drain commissioner, which would be probably a throwback to when the drain commissioner was heading up the soil erosion, and I think that is unfair to both parties. I mean,
And again, using a stock draft or a template that came through, that was probably an oversight and a typo out of there, and that's a simple addition, is to put that in.
it would be. probably
Absolutely, it's a simple addition to put that in.
Okay.
And that's something probably that I didn't catch out of the template because of the Drain Commissioner Soil Erosion Department
Right.
demographics here. So that, again, will not affect the resolution or the plan.
But it will be corrected before the
Abs-
resolution is taken out 2 units. I'm assuming like most of these plans, we pass it, you take it out to the communities, and then it has to come back for ratification.
Once you guys approve the resolution, as far as it's done in a county level, and it is the choice of the individual municipalities to adopt it or not. On page 6, I believe it is, there is a list. It's not 6. It's a little farther back. There is a list of our current municipalities that adopted it and those that did not. Let's see if I can find it real fast. I just had it.
13? I think it's on page 13.
Page 17. Page 17, it's the NFIP participation status of who participates and who doesn't. And it is solely the discretion of the jurisdictions that participate in the plan or not. And that varies, I think, from year to year and how it's presented and what the benefits are and aren't for the plan. A lot of people think of it just as a benefit for them in the case of flooding. It's really not. It's a benefit. Flooding is a big thing that it's thought of, but it's also, if there's a tornado that comes through, or there's wind damage, if there's a forest fire, or for that matter, if there's even an earthquake, which we're not really susceptible to, but we're on the fault line, and there was a second earthquake in southwest Michigan this week. So.
Dan?
I'm not so sure we should leave the drain commissioner out of this. Certainly, his job, and many times, involves flooding. And there could be grants that he could benefit from in terms of cement culverts and those types of things. So to just carte blanche, leave him out, I don't know that everyone here is really familiar with all the responsibilities he has. Maybe even you're not. So to just leave him out, I don't think that's necessarily right. He doesn't need to be included if he doesn't need to be included, but to just leave him out carte blanche because he's not soil erosion, I don't know if I agree with that.
Well, perhaps I misunderstood. I was going to add soil erosion as well as the drain commissioner.
And there's areas that is strictly drainage for drainage.
But he should not be left out, is my point.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
it should, but the soil erosion should not be left.
We should note that in this community, soil erosion is handled by our construction code department, not by the drain commission.
No problem with that.
So,
No
yeah, I
problem
think
with
it's just
that,
a dual notice.
That's exactly what I was going to do. I didn't take it to remove the drain commissioner. I just
Right.
took it as an add to the soil erosion
Okay.
because we
I'm
have
happy with that.
2 partners that do that. And I'm more than happy with conditional approval of the resolution. I'll make that fix as well as the Paradise, get a clean copy that includes your resolution in it and distribute it back out just so you all, actually there is an original copy that has to be filed anyway with the clerk of the hazard mitigation plan, as well as the planning department takes a copy of it and drain commissioner soil erosion also gets a copy of it.
Unless someone has an objection, my suggestion is that we go ahead and take action on this tonight, because it would be ratified at the Board of Commissioners meeting at the end of the month if we don't make it for immediate effect. And Greg, between now and the end of the month, you will see that we get clean copies with these typos and changes made, correct?
Absolutely. Dr. Johnson's typo, it was within 8 hours, and I had to fix to it. We work with Michael Woods in Northwest, I just got to send him an email, and he'll add it. That's all.
Dan?
I make the motion that we accept the Grand Traverse County Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan for immediate approval.
I'll support.
I would
Wait,
ask that it not be for immediate approval if we're going to ask for a corrected copy.
Oh, I thought we
Oh, I
just
thought he wanted
assumed
immediate
he was
approval.
going to give it corrected. I think we can trust a few corrections. We have a major event coming up in the next 2 weeks, and I know that Mr. Byrd would appreciate having this approved tonight. It was specifically done that way.
I can have the copy sent out. As long as Mike's in the office, I can have it sent out tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I kind of would like to have it that we have an active plan in time for Cherry Fest, which officially starts Saturday the 4th.
All right.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded to approve the mitigation plan for immediate effect. Motion by Lathrop, supported by Kropa. Further discussion.
I think we should just thank Greg. This ball was dropped a long time ago, and he's, this is a big deal and a lot of work, so thank you.
To thank the partners from all the agencies listed there that really, amongst other things, put their heads down and got the business done to get it approved. It's about a 6 to 8 month process going through the state and federal government, so I appreciate their input.
Roll call, please, Bonnie.
Kropa,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Klaus,
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Carried.
You, Greg.
Next item is environmental health clerical reclassification. Wendy, who's handling this? So.
I am.
Okay.
Tom might be joining me too.
Tom-
Good evening.
Tom's just here for moral support?
No. Wendy Truitt, Health Officer, Grand Traverse County Health Department. Before I hop into that topic, I did want to just add something regarding some other efforts for Cherry Festival that the Health Department does, and because Greg mentioned Mike Leahy, who's our Emergency Preparedness Coordinator, he's here in the audience, and he mentioned the word mitigation. One of the other things that the Health Department does specifically, in addition to the incident command trailer and the monitoring that goes down, is that we do special event surveillance with the assistance of our regional epidemiologists. It's enhanced disease surveillance. It occurs between June 29th and July 17th this year. And because it's the Cherry Festivals of national significance, it warrants this additional surveillance looking for potential communicable disease activity. What it does is it's something called syndromic surveillance, which is trying to catch things before they become a big event. That's kind of a form of mitigation. It's looking for emerging infections, naturally occurring epidemics, or covert terrorism. We look at things like gastrointestinal signs and symptoms, respiratory signs and symptoms, rashes, maybe botulism, or neurologic symptoms. And so it's monitored through the emergency room departments or urgent cares, and potentially, if we needed to, we could contact pharmacies and see if there's been an uptick in the purchase of certain supplies. So it's kind of we do the surveillance on a daily basis, but when you have something like this, you do enhanced surveillance. So just wanted to make you aware that's something that is also going on during that time. All right, I will hop into the environmental health division clerical reclassification. I also have Tom Buss, the director of the Division of Environmental Health and Animal Control, with me, who might hop in if you have questions that I can't answer. What we're requesting is the approval to reclassify our environmental health specialists to that of an office coordinator. Over the past few years, the job duties for this position have increased significantly and expanded. The added responsibilities include the departmental general accounting duties, like accounts receivable, accounts payable, payroll, and purchasing. Leslie Maher is the person who is the office specialist. She's here in the audience in the back. And her specific knowledge that she's obtained for these programs actually allows her to answer independently, assist a lot of the customers who come in. A lot of the environmental health staff are out during the day doing restaurant inspections, well inspections. And so she's actually able to answer a lot of the questions that come her way. And that frees up professional staff for some of their additional work. She has the added responsibility of now maintaining our website. She's being trained for the new website design, so she will be doing all the additions and everything for those programs, and just kind of the overall office coordination of all the programs. They're a broad group. It includes restaurant inspections, the 2 safe drinking water programs, septic program, animal control, body art, which is tattoos, public pools, campgrounds, Department of Health and Human Services inspections, our indoor air quality, radon, and beach monitoring. She supports the professional staff in all the day-to-day operations, including customer service, permitting. She also took the lead on a recent information technology program that we did last year, where we're in the process of scanning all the permits, so they're available electronically for realtors and people who are building houses and need immediate access. I have reviewed and approved, as well as our Director of Environmental Health, and our Finance and Administrative Services Director has reviewed and indicated that the budget for these programs can support the added cost. The added cost is about $1,700 a year, so fairly minimal. And we actually worked through the job analysis questionnaire for this reclassification when Jen Seaman was still the HR director, and she approved, and Sally has since approved as well. So just a summary, we're asking for the reclassification of the office specialist position to that of an office coordinator.
Comments, questions? Dean, a recommendation or a comment?
I'm fine with the request.
This funding is available through the health department's
Yes, yes it is.
revenue. Pleasure of the board.
I will make a motion to approve the reclassification of the office specialist position to that of an office coordinator position for the environmental health and animal control divisions.
Support?
Motion by Cropus, supported by Crawford. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Thank you on behalf of Leslie. Who is a very efficient and hardworking now coordinator. I thank you as well.
Congratulations.
Our next order of business would be Central Dispatch. Jason Smith.
Good evening, Jason Torrey, Deputy Director for 911. You got about a 20-page packet in your agenda. Hopefully you had a chance to review that. It gives an overview of what we're trying to accomplish here and discuss. We've got several public safety representatives to support this project. Motorola Representative Rich Uslan is here to answer any questions regarding the technology and the equipment proposal. And we also have Director Brad Stoddard with the MPSCS here to give an overview and to answer any questions about the system itself. So he'll have about a 10 slides or so presentation after I'm done here. It should be noted that this project is fully supported by the 911 Board of Directors and Technical Subcommittee, members of that committee, and that Board of Directors include the 5 fire departments: Traverse City Fire, Blair Fire, Peninsula Fire, Rural Fire, Metro Fire. Law enforcement agencies include Traverse City Police, Sheriff's Office, Michigan State Police, also EMS, 911, and Emergency Management. The original communication system was constructed in the 1980s. Although we have made improvements over the years, there is still a significant need for improving the coverage, reliability, and quality of the countywide radio communications and paging functions. The build-out that occurred in the 80s provided for 1 primary county transmitter location at the Central Tower and receivers in Fife Lake, Carlin, Long Lake, and Williamsburg. The Williamsburg location was never even built, and the other sites provided for adequate mobile coverage but lacked significantly for portable talkback capabilities. So over the course of the last 25 years, we have been making mild improvements to the system with new receiver locations in Interlock and Williamsburg. We added additional paging and transmitter locations in Williamsburg, Long Lake, and replaced antiquated UHF links with grant-funded microwave technology. And we retuned the equipment to maximize performance capabilities. The 2013 FCC mandate, known as narrowbanding, has also had a negative effect on those communication enhancements. Estimated to have degraded each of the radio signals by 15%. We are not the only community experiencing these problems, and other counties and municipalities are being forced to fill in new dead spots or find alternatives to their communication needs. Much of them are moving to the MPSCS. As outlined in your packet, we conducted coverage testing of both our VHF system and the MPSCS 800 megahertz system in 2004. There were approximately 500 points tested, and nearly 28% of those points on our VHF system were deemed a failure. Public safety grade portable radio coverage should be at a minimum of 95% or better. Ours was rated at 71%. Portable radio coverage is by far the most important to the first responders, as most of their work takes place outside the vehicle. Late last year, we conducted a follow-up test of the MPSCS. This time we tested over 700 points, including at least one test per square mile, emergency rooms, government buildings, every school cafeteria, main office area, and library. Local public safety officials worked with the MPSCS testing team to target known trouble spots for our VHF system. Without a significant overhaul, we have reached the maximum capacity for which our VHF system can and will function. In 2003, RCC Consultants was asked to develop a strategic plan for Grand Traverse County public safety systems. The goals for RCC were to help Grand Traverse County develop enhancements to the public safety system to include a mobile data system, automatic vehicle locator system, CAD RMS updates, provide adequate space for the 911 communications center, and provide options for an updated countywide radio system. To date, we have done every one of those things on the list except for the radio communication system. The 2003 RCC plan recommended a standalone county-owned trunked 800 megahertz radio system at an estimated cost of $11 million. At the time of the RCC consultant's recommendation, the MPSCS was an option, but it was viewed as a state police radio system and had very little participation from local communities. Today, their membership consists mostly of local public safety agencies and is known for being a go-to system for maximizing interoperability between first responders. The systems map that you have located in your packet shows the level of participation from around the state. It should be noted that Isabella, Benzie, and Wexford all joined the MPSCS recently, but the map does not reflect that. I also know firsthand that Sheboygan, Charlevoix, and Emmett counties are also starting the process of coverage study to explore the benefits of participating with the MPSCS. There are already over 300 current MPSCS radios on the system. U.S. Coast Guard, Mental Health, DNR, Department of Corrections, National Park Department, Michigan State Police, and TSA all have radios on the system. There are also a number of local public safety agencies, including emergency management, fire, 911, EMS, and law enforcement that do have some capabilities on the 800 that they use for incidents and planned events that call for maximum communications and interoperability. The MPSCS is known around the nation as a model for which radio systems are built. It is a state-of-the-art Motorola Astro P25 trunk radio system, and as you can see from the map in your packet, it is a significant foundation in the state. This is also a system that is fully funded by the taxpayers, including residents of Grand Traverse County, and is an overwhelming choice for most public safety agencies looking to improve their communication needs. In addition to the radio units, the proposal also provides for a simulcast paging solution. As previously documented as a priority for 911 and first responders is the need to eliminate zone paging and covering issues that we have. If a partnership with the MPSCS is successful, we would be afforded the opportunity to co-locate at their tower sites and provide for countywide paging coverage we need. Up until recently, the only paging solutions designed were on VHF. However, there's a relatively new solution that is being beta tested in various parts of the state. It's an 800 megahertz solution, and it could be operated on the MPSCS. It's a brand new technology. It stands to be thoroughly tested before being available for public safety. In addition to being newer, there may be cost savings involved. We need a paging solution regardless, and we'd still need a commitment from Grand Traverse County Board to find the right solution. The technical subcommittee of the 911 Board of Directors is confident that this is the right choice for enhancing our public safety communication and paging systems. We took the approach of making this a collective effort for public safety agencies in Grand Traverse County, as the idea that interoperability only succeeds if we do it together. As a department request that was presented to you already through our Next Gen 911 technical consultant, you have committed to the replacement of our radio consoles. The new MCC 7500 consoles will provide for the integration piece to the MPSCS, and the proposed Motorola brand radio units and simulcast components are offered at prices below state contract. As noted in your packet as well, Motorola radios are the predominant radio of choice. Nearly 86% of the radios registered on the system are Motorola brand equipment. These units have been vetted by thousands of public safety agencies in the state, and through our own research and on-site hands-on evaluation of physical design and audio quality, we are confident in making a recommendation to use the Motorola brand solutions. Page 130 and 131 provide information on the surcharge analysis that we did with Dean. It shows the impact on the surcharge revenues, and if you so choose to invest in something like this, how that would impact the bottom line for our budget. I'd like to bring Brad Stoddard up when appropriate, unless you have any questions now, give an overview on the MPSCS as a system and the membership benefits associated with that.
It's fine.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
The spreadsheet takes us through 2021, which is when the surcharge either has to be voted back in or it's done.
Correct.
What would that impact be on 2022 if the voters don't want to pony up and vote this in again?
The lease proposal that we used to make this analysis is a 6-year lease proposal. So we lined that up in parallel with the 6-year surcharge projection at the increase to $1.85. So technically, it would, if we went back to the 80 cents, but we should have our debt paid off by then, if that makes sense.
It does. Is there not an annual fee for each radio to be on the system?
Yeah, we can talk about that. That is a variable that's in play that Director Stoddard with the MPSCS might be able to comment on better. Okay. Because there is some talk about possibly reducing that fee or replacing it with an activation fee instead of an annual subscription. The current annual subscription for the mic fee is $200 a unit. That's portable and mobile. So theoretically, every cop on the street's got $400 a year wrapped up into it. At about 800 units, I think we are at more than 800 units for countywide. You're talking $160,000 a year. That's significant. Obviously, over their 6-year period, even that's almost $1 million. So we're hoping that they replace that annual subscription fee with a one-time activation fee. At worst, it'd be nice if it went away altogether. I don't think that's going to happen, but he'll be able to talk about that some more. Other questions for Brad at this time? Come up, Brad.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Board, for the opportunity to be in my home community and we'll give you a little bit of background on what, as taxpayers, we have across the state, but it's probably one of the greatest kept secrets we have within the state. So what you have is, I think there's about 40 slides I'll go through in the next 7 minutes or so. Really, all joking aside, I'm a member of a school board, so I know what it's like to go through late in the evening. So give a little background. Jason covered a few things in the history of the MPSCS. As it started, really back in the mid-'80s, when I was in middle school in Kingsley, there was some ideal individuals really within the state police then that had this visionary approach of create a statewide system at that time for the state police just to operate amongst themselves. Unfortunately, technology didn't exist to replace what they had built in the 1940s that was still in place by the mid-'80s. So as the conceptual idea, as they looked at that strategic plan, they knew technology was going to evolve. By the early 90s, there was a joint committee between the legislature, Senate, House, and the governor had his own committee at the time as well to look at this strategic direction. How could they make this approach? At that time, it was now not just the state police, but it was Department of Natural Resources, MDOT, et cetera. Again, trying to capitalize on what were these separate systems that each of these state agencies had and really take economies of scale. Instead of supporting 3 or more, let's just support 1 and then allow that capability statewide. So from the early 90s then to the mid-90s, contract was established, or an RFP was put on the street, and then subsequently it was awarded. By the late 90s, I was hired on as an engineer to help construct this system statewide. Within a few years, we really started seeing growth, not only on the state side, but also the federal side, local agencies, et cetera. But what it's done through the years, what we've really noticed is this same system, irregardless if your decision were to join the system or even satisfactorily portions of your public safety agencies join the system, I still have to operate this system in all 83 counties. I still have state agencies that leverage this system for their day-to-day business. So some of the things that we've done through the years, from the time that my predecessors were in this role and I was an engineer, to what I've done over the past 7.5 years, we've taken a very strong approach to try and do away with subscriber fees. We understand the same things as I sat in the audience and listened to the earlier conversation around personnel, especially on the public safety side where there's fewer dollars to support those needs. So we've really tried taking the approach to do away with the subscriber fee. Unfortunately, there's some within state government that believe that it has to be cost neutral. So that was the approach that Jason covers, what I shared with members of the committee earlier this year and then the fall last year, is we were looking at a new approach. Ideally, it would be nice to do away with it. As my total budget, it's very small from a percentage standpoint of my total budget. But realistically, I can't argue with those above me that say it has to be revenue neutral. So we tried looking at something that really lessened the impact on the communities. Realistically, if whether it be Grand Traverse County or Midland County that just recently joined, as they bought the radios, they could capitalize that cost of the turn-on fee right up front. And then until you replace that radio, you don't have another turn-on fee. So we tried being creative. And then we really looked at that internally, because we also have seen through the years that unfortunately, fees detract from interoperability capabilities, because there's agencies that really need it, really can't afford it. So it's much like, again, like the earlier conversation, which is an interesting parallel. Those that are incarcerated can't afford to pay the bills back. The same issues I have on the radio system. Agencies that in many cases are smaller agencies, volunteer fire departments, which you have many across the county as well, there's a cost to that, but they may not have the funds to cover those costs. So that's where we've really tried taking the approach of these economies of scale and trying to reduce those costs altogether. One of the things that, calling on the RCC report back done in 2003, I can say at that time, I think the trust towards the MPSCS, the Michigan Public Safety Communication System, probably wasn't ideal across the state. Some of it was early marketing of it, or the approach of the marketing. What I've heard through the years since I've been in my job, it was marketing was kind of tongue-in-cheek. It was more of, you're going to use this system whether you like it or not. And many have held on to that thought. They were your peers across the state that never forgot that. And so they were holding on to those thought processes. But what we've continued to do is educate with the economies of scale of the system. By sharing this system, you're able to reduce not only your upfront costs, but also your costs long term. And not only have we seen that at the state level, we've seen it repeatedly across the counties as well. So in this, what you'll see, definitely in your pack in front of you, that might be a little difficult to see there, but we really started bringing on agencies in 1997, were the agencies we brought on, which was in Southeast Michigan. Although when we finished the complete build-out of the statewide system was in 2002. So we took a snapshot at that time of the total number of agencies, total number of radios on the system. As you can see, and I pulled the numbers as of last evening when I went to the office to pull this information together, it's just shy of an 800% increase of radios on the system. Predominantly, that is local agencies. Those are your peers that have sat in the same seats that all of you have, making the decisions on those costs, interoperability, how to promote interoperability for public safety, to provide the means, even as Greg talked about emergency management needs. Same thing, we work with the feds from those standpoints. Here now you have a capability to not only communicate within your county, but your adjoining jurisdictions around the county borders. The other approach that we've done is, in what Sheboygan, Charlevoix, and Emmett County has done, is they had an existing radio system that they had investments in. They weren't ready to retire a radio system, so there were some capital costs that from a taxpayer in the community, any one of us would not be supporting of them just abandoning something because something new came in. But we provided the opportunity for CCE to, as they were bringing on new consoles, to save money in the community and connect to our system using the brains of the system itself, but utilizing that to talk on their own radios. So we saved roughly the CCE community just shy of $1 million by just leveraging the back end of the system. They're still utilizing the VHF system, but as Jason talked about, they're looking at transition key components across CCE. I think law enforcement is one of the key areas they're looking at first. One of the opportunities that we've really seen as the benefit for the communities of the why question. I think any one of you may ask that. Why would we look towards the subscriber fee in lieu of building our own system altogether? Some of that is deemed local control. You have just as much control over all of your talk groups or your radios that you do today on your own system. Where the benefit comes in is I upgrade our entire network biannually. The only reason why we don't do it on an annual basis, we're the largest public safety communication system in North America. So there's, as you look at this, the number of agencies that are on it, we're not talking about 3 state agencies now. We're talking over 1,400 agencies. For us to accommodate those impacts for everybody, it can be quite a bit of a challenge. We noticed that about 2 years ago when we were performing what seemingly was a minute task, and it actually had a significant issue for the city of Detroit as they blinked for about 8 minutes. Although they managed their own subsystem, we took control of that and brought them back online, brought our partners Motorola in on that to help do that. But where this comes into play, and I think this is the financial question of this, is those costs to upgrade the statewide network biannually, those costs aren't pushed to the users. We pay that. That's part of our appropriation on an annual basis, that we're covering the cost over every state tower out there, even the local towers. Fortunately, in the packet you have from the coverage standpoint, we don't believe that there's, based on the coverage, that you need an additional tower inside Grand Traverse County, which is a plus. The average cost of a tower is roughly about $1 million. So the benefit out of that is as we go through each upgrade, even though in your community you wouldn't have a tower site to do that, but those things are covered as those costs. We're not coming back at the communities going, hey, we need you to cover those components, those costs. Some things, though, to clarify, as I know many of my vendors from the private sector are in the audience as well, the approach we've taken is through the years is whoever maintains your radios today, your portable radios, your mobile radios for any of your public safety entities or your consoles, those are the people that are still going to maintain it going forward. I don't have the staff to maintain all of the 1,400 plus agencies on the statewide system, but realistically that's something that is a local control aspect. Those are things that can be negotiated locally with your partners, or in many cases people have people on staff that do that. There's technicians that do those components. Where some of the other benefits, as Jason identified, by a standards-based system, there are numbers of manufacturers that play out there, so it really provides you your competition to drive your costs much lower. The other part is of the number of agencies on the system, this is pretty much what you see as a breakdown. For the longest time, many saw that as the percentage is it was predominantly law enforcement that used it. As you can see in front of you or on the screens, it's quite a smattering of anyone that represents a public safety or emergency management need. The approach that we took many years ago, working with our counsel within the Attorney General's office, the law actually on the books restricted to law enforcement only. And unfortunately, that was an oversight when the law was put in so they could build the towers. We had a legal opinion on that with the Attorney General and then subsequently our counsel. And the way they looked at that, it was public safety. It provided the means for any public safety entity to utilize the system. So as an example, you see schools on here. Some may say, all right, how does schools fall into public safety? Well, in some communities across the Upper Peninsula, the schools are part of their emergency management plan. So a disaster occurs, school buses are used to move those people around the communities. So that's, as we all know, if you never use a device, when it's time to use it, you don't know how to use it. So they build it in as part of the baseline. It doesn't have an impact on the communications aspects of the system. So it's providing that value again for the other communities. So as you look in your community here, if you have obviously your public safety, but if you have your public works as well, and they're on a radio system, they can utilize the MPSCS as well. You don't have to maintain a separate system. The other aspect that you'll see in here is the miscellaneous. We actually have utility companies leveraging the system as well. As an example, I just signed the FCC waiver for Cherryland Electric, hoping that the FCC provides us the capability so Cherryland Electric can utilize the system as well, instead of passing off those costs for a separate radio system to essentially their consumers. So here's, again, a way to minimize those costs but leverage it on a much larger scale. Fortunately, though, as we look at some of those private entities, the FCC looks at those things differently. Utility is not a public safety entity, so utility has to bring quite a bit more investment to the table than what any other public safety entity does. In the next few slides, I'll just kind of swing through. We have a 24/7 network communication center. We know what happens at every one of our sites, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As an example, also, as the number of storms have wreaked havoc, you know, not only this year, but on a regular span of time. For the most part, many of our users have no idea that we've lost commercial power at those sites. They're all on a generator backup with runtime of 7 or 14 days, depending on the type of site it is. But there's a coordination that we also do with all of our users as we go through upgrades on the system. We start on a 6-month table out and work backwards in. It's not uncommon to be within 7 days of transition. And we talk to, I think mostly it's been local law enforcement, and there's some major event going on that we can't do that, so we've got to scrub it and start over. So there's a very strong coordination as the NCC, as an example, I think the Bayshore Marathon used a number of the radios for that. We provided event talk groups for that. So those are talk groups that are specific for that event. No one else has access to those, but from the training component, other public safety entities have those talk groups in the radio. So if there was an incident now as part of the training, they can roll over to those talk groups and communicate. That's the benefit now of the interoperability solution, as many times we look at the interoperability needs only within the community or that county, that city, township, et cetera, whatever it may be, where that existing tower system is. But it's not uncommon if you look at a jail transfer, someone's outside of the county, how are they communicating once they leave the county? Or how are they communicating when they're coming into the county? Same as you look at mutual aid around the county basis, as you have more and more interoperable aspects of the MPSCS being adopted across the state. Your bordering communities, Wexford County, Leelanau County, Benzie County, Antrim County, all users of the MPSCS at some flavor or aspect, some completely adopted, some not so much. What we've seen in some communities, many times the reason why they've made the decision not to adopt the MPSCS is usually based on some political motivation. It's not based on, rarely is it based on a cost. If you break the numbers down, $200 per radio per year, that's roughly $17 per month. But that's not per user, that's per radio. So if you have 20 law enforcement officers, they're only paying on the 10 radios they have, not the 20 officers. Radio programming unit, every radio that comes through the system comes through this group. They're also the group to help facilitate you on the planning of the radios, the talk groups, what's proprietary, what's not proprietary. As an example, if there's proprietary talk groups that an adjoining community might have, let's say Wexford County has, that they'd like to share with Grand Traverse County, until we have a concurrence letter from them to say you can, we're not going to provide you with those talk groups or your public safety entities, and vice versa. That's the local control aspect of what you have. I think through the years, what I've heard is some communities believe that, you know, that everyone has access to it, or a state agency has access to every talk group in the system. That's not true. Those are managed strictly through our communication center and radio programming unit. We also have our tower services. We maintain all of our own tower sites around the state. Much of that is around cost and uptime. As these are 500-foot towers in the air, it's not uncommon for them to get struck by lightning on an occasional basis. So we can dispatch personnel, obviously after the storm moves through, to go out and repair those sites. We have staff, not only steeplejacks, but our radio technicians. In every region of the state, we have personnel on call 24 hours a day. So downtime is truly minimized. As well as we have an engineering team do engineering analysis with the FCC, work on behalf of the entire statewide system. A number of other pieces that we also offer up as other options as part of the radio not required. But we've noticed, communities don't have the depth to put in a computer-aided dispatching solution or AVL solution. So we provided some of those capabilities where they can leverage it as a buffet. They can buy radio or they can utilize all of it. And most recently, we've converted the University of Michigan where they're utilizing our computer-aided dispatching solution for all of their public safety around the University of Michigan. We have a number of outreach components as well. Forums like this where it provides myself or some of my staff around the state to provide education of the MPSCS. I think the one aspect that we've really done, the parallel is many as they look at the radio, that those that don't use a radio really don't know what it does. It's almost the Wizard of Oz or black magic, whatever anyone wants to look at it as. But we can really, the best parallel for the MPSCS, it really is the Mackinac Bridge. The Mackinac Bridge connected in the 1950s two peninsulas and communities on either side of that bridge that prior to that had no real means to communicate unless it was a bottle and hopefully it floated across. The MPSCS, it connected not only 83 counties, but it connected now townships and villages and cities, communities, public safety, all across the state. I think through the 90s, it was probably quite a bit well known. I know it's been utilized as more than a handful of times within the governor's annual this is what we're going to do opportunities. But it was really interesting is Governor Snyder, the MPSCS remediation efforts as investment in the life cycle wasn't even in his playbook as he ran for governor. He had no idea about it. But it was really the capabilities of the MPSCS allowed him to live at home and not have to, be away from his children while they were in school. Washtenaw County did exactly what Jason has proposed minutes ago. Washtenaw County did that, except they needed some additional sites to cover their needs across the county. So it provided the governor to do that. What the governor has done, which really hasn't been done since Engler was the governor, was look at this truly as a strategic investment for the state. With the amount of agencies that are leveraging the state, the amount of impact it would have on the public safety community as well as the local communities, this was no longer a kick the can down the road. It was do something now. So he committed roughly $150 million over a decade for complete remediation across the statewide system. So what that means to you is if you needed a site in Grand Traverse County, those costs to remediate that site now aren't your costs. They're part of what we do in remediation. Some of the other parts that we identified as part of this strategically is we had a site down in Macomb County that no longer is an RF site. It has a microwave path to it. So we had some spare RF equipment. What we did is, based on the number of public safety users you would bring on the system, you'd need to make an investment in some channels at each of those sites. What we did is we targeted, as part of the remediation, those channels that are out of Macomb County and redeploy those to the Grand Traverse region. So again, trying to minimize costs to the community. Part of that was some efforts that I looked at it. This is my home community. I grew up in this area in Kalkaska County. So to me, it's important to try and do something from a financial standpoint as well as an interoperability standpoint for the public safety entities, provide solutions for the community. And with that, I can answer any questions. This is all of, I think, my management staff for the most part. But this evening, it's just me that's here. I brought no support team or posse with me. You just got me.
No peeps?
No peeps. Yeah.
Comments? Questions? Lisa?
Well, I don't have a comment. Thanks for coming up, by the
Thank
way.
you.
Appreciate that. I feel the need to possibly translate this a little bit because I am, being a representative on the Central Dispatch Board of Directors, typically a girl in the middle of a bunch of guys that know a lot about radios and stuff. And just to maybe clarify this a little bit, before I ran for this office almost solely on this radio program, which you know, because I found out how behind we were in our radio system here in Grand Traverse County and how you aren't necessarily going to have people show up that you need in the time that you need them when there's an emergency, but even worse for many of them that they might not get the backup that they need. So last year, I believe a tremendous wrong was done in Grand Traverse County, and I was certainly not quiet about it. Despite what was written in the paper, there was really a reality to it, which was, I think, that the voters did not get what they asked for when they went and voted for the surcharge. So Grand Traverse County enacted a 911 surcharge, and I truly believe in my heart that it was because they wanted to correct the problems that we have in our system here. Everyone I talk to not only is grateful to the first responders and our central dispatch team, but they rely on them. None of us know when we're going to need to call 911, and we certainly hope they pick up the phone and that the people get the call. So when I saw what our previous administrator did last year, which was remove central dispatch from the general fund budget and replaced it with the surcharge, I was truly upset. It was not a secret to anybody. And there was no reason to remove that department from the budget other than to plug a budget hole. And I thought it was an embarrassment to our community and to the citizens that went and voted. So I am asking today, on behalf of the Central Board of Directors, Central Dispatch Board of Directors, to replace that department back in the general fund of the county and to use that surcharge money for what it was promised to, which was to correct our 1980s radio system that we have in our county. 71% is not acceptable. That 29% could be your kid choking or your husband having a heart attack or the car accident that you were just in. It's not acceptable. And I was profoundly disappointed in the actions of last year's administrator and board. And whatever we can do to correct it, I'm going to ask you to join me in correcting it. And I asked today for several of the first responders to be here because I think it's important for the people listening to hear where their money is going to go. And we don't understand, none of us that sit on this board can truly understand what they face every day with this radio system right now. And so I wanted some of them to share it with you, and I know there's lots of uniforms out there, but any of them, I mean, I know Theo is dying to get up and speak. Look at him. He's and Pat, and we have Chris here, and Tom, and I mean, we even have our state police guy is here. To ask for some of this funding to go back to fund the operational day-to-day things in 911 would allow us to take advantage of an amazing opportunity here. What you didn't hear tonight is that they are going through and doing infrastructure upgrades on the towers. We will benefit to the tune of $0 in getting those if we make a commitment now to upgrade on this system. Not only that, by bundling this, we save hundreds of thousands of dollars. We already made a commitment several weeks ago to upgrade the 911 dispatch. I'm asking you for the other piece of the puzzle now, which is what I had said then. So I'm hoping that some of our first responders can tell you, and to the people listening at home, and most importantly, the people that went to the polls and trusted us to use this money to the best of our ability. And I believe in giving them the best product, and I think that this is the best product that we can offer, the MPSCS system, along with the Motorola project that we have here. So I hope to hear from some of them. I think that the community wants to hear from them too, and know how their dollars are going to not only help their job, but possibly, save lives.
Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we were told to keep our opinions to ourselves at one of the meetings.
Was that the parking lot
I don't think we have to do that anymore.
I got into a fist fight in the
allowed.
parking lot over 911.
Because I remember when I was campaigning too, that, I was asked about the surcharge. I supported it based on the impression I had that it was all going to go towards upgrades. I think as you talked about, what do we do in 6 years? If we use this money for what the public intended it to do, I believe we'll be able to keep an increased surcharge, is what I hope to, because in this type day and age, this equipment is going to have lifespan that is probably shorter than what it used to be, just on technology.
Absolutely.
And to stay at the cutting edge of it, we're going to have to continually do some type of capital improvement. And that's the easiest way to do it, to me, is to keep that surcharge. But I support this.
Dan?
One of the things that concerns me, I I have so much admiration for policemen and firemen and EMS because they're the only person that will risk their life for you and they don't even know you. And so this system provides backup for those people, and it can save their lives too. So I agree with everything you say. I'm going to support this. I agree with things you both say. I think that money was meant to go for equipment, and I believe my citizens think the same way.
I guess I have a, go ahead, Carol.
And I would echo what Bob said. If you're concerned about getting the surcharge renewed again in 6 years, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
You use the money the way the taxpayers, the way we told them we were going to use it, and the way that it was intended. That's what they were told when they voted for it, and that's what we need to do. We need to keep our promise that this is what it was meant for. You can't ask them to vote for something and then use it for something similar but different. It's not right to do that. We need to use the money in this manner, the way that it was intended, or we won't get it again.
I guess I'd like to back up just a little bit, talk a little bit about the RCC study in 2003. One of the things that we dealt with in 2003 was the fact that the MPSCS system was truly just under construction. It worked very well in southeastern Michigan. It truly was not available here yet. They kept telling us, yes, you go to the 800 system and we'll be ready for you when you need it. But I'm not sure that we were really convinced at that point. We talked about the 800 patch, you know, so we could tie on to that. It never really came to fruition. It was promised that it was going to be there, but it never did happen. I carried one of those radios for over 30 years. You know, I can show you the paces in Long Lake, Green Lake Township that you can stand in the driveway and you can't talk to anybody. And when you go in the basement, you're lucky if you can talk to the squad sitting out in the driveway. You know, I can show you those places, but that's not the point. The point is that in 2003, when we made the decision to stay on our own, the MPSCS project truly wasn't operational to our community and available to us. The other thing was the surrounding counties at that time were not in a position to go toward anything like that. You know, I remember telling stories about, you know, sitting in an engine, pumping 1,000 gallons a minute, 700 feet up a hill to a fire scene that I couldn't see and I couldn't talk to. You know, and that was in Leelanau County, but I had no communications whatsoever to this fire scene that I'm pumping water to. And that's a scary feeling, you know, and for an old guy like me, running up and down the driveway wasn't an option, you know. So, and I was even a lot younger then. But the fact is that, you know, we all sit back and we say, well, you should have done the 800 system. Truly, when we made the commitment in 2003, 2004 to enhance the system that we have, it truly wasn't available to us. You know, we took a lot of flack. You know, the state police campaigned very actively that we were doing it all wrong, but the system wasn't here. You know, they told us it was going to be here, but it wasn't here.
And Chair, if I may respond to that, actually across the entire state was completed in 2002. So not sure when the RCC study started, but you're entirely correct. Perception, really in the early days, that was the thickest issue that we had. And the other part was education. You know, my predecessor, great guy that hired me on, very knowledgeable as it related to the law. Even to this day, he would admit he was a terrible marketing guy. And it was very much the approach that he had. But in 2002, we completed the last phase, so it was built out for the entire state. So when it was completed up here, we completed it in here in this region, or it would have been Region 7, so Grand Traverse County, Leelanau, Benzie, et cetera. It would have been completed in 2001. Because at that time, I was the engineer still working on all that up here. So I'm not sure the time frame, but you're entirely right. I'm not suggesting looking at anything in the past, because there's plenty of the communities that were just like you, made decisions, and looking at it now, going, okay, the world is different now. It's not what it was in 2002, 2003.
You know, surrounding counties were still working on low band at that time. You know, we made the move to high band, and everybody's sitting back, well, how are you going to afford to do that? Well, we figured out how to pay for that, but it didn't help when Elmira Township, 4 miles from my house, was still on low band, and I couldn't talk to them.
Correct. And the other part,
both radios for a while.
Yeah, the other part that Jason added, that we really waited for a while, which is the other potential opportunity. Can't say that it is the opportunity, because we're in the beta testing, which is a paging solution. That was another deterrent for quite a while through the 2000s, as many departments looked at it, and counties looked at it, communities, I still have to have this paging solution, so if I'm on VHF, I might as well just hang on to VHF. Well, and we worked, we're the big gorilla in this space for around the nation, so we can get the ear of just about any corporation, and plenty of them looked at it. And roughly about last August, we found a company and we started doing it ourselves. So we'll be leading this, and what that's done is it's created a ripple effect on the other 40-plus systems around the nation. We'll end up, as a nation, have a paging solution that is on 800 or 700 trunked, based on us just taking the lead. And it was like one of the earlier slides, it was the engineering staff that I have that's working on that right now.
Commissioner Wheelock, you can understand my disappointment in you when I watched you vote to eliminate central dispatch from the budget last year, when you of all people know what it's like to be pumping water into a fire when you can't see. And I'm hoping that you are going to reverse your decision from last year by supporting this project here that we're doing, and supporting and making a commitment for 6 years to not have central dispatch eliminated from the budget. Of all the people, I couldn't believe that you voted for it last year, and I'm hoping to see unanimous support tonight for this project.
Other comments? Chris?
I would move to approve the 911 Board of Directors signing into a membership agreement with the Michigan Public Safety Communications System, and to review and negotiate a contract for the purchase of the Motorola brand 800 megahertz, I believe that's what that stands for, portable and mobile radio units as proposed, committing up to $457,900 or $397 for the funding of an enhanced simulcast paging solution. Did I read that correctly?
Have a motion by Maxwell, or do we have support?
Support.
Do we have discussion?
Well, I would think if you could invite anyone up that may want to speak.
Anyone wish to make comment?
Please.
Harold?
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Harold Carlton. I reside at 426 East State in the city. I'm also the owner of Grand Traverse Mobile Communications. We're a radio shop in town here. We've been doing that about 18 years. I've actually been in the radio business in the Traverse City area since the late 70s. We support the MPSCS system. We feel it's a viable resource for the county. I was invited to a technical get-together with Jason and a lot of the other users, and at that time I also brought up my support of that. We do offer some alternative manufactured products that work on the system, and we're asking for an opportunity to bid those products. I guess I'll just go through my bullets, and I'll probably stay on track a little bit better. So I just made some notes based on some of Jason's comments earlier. They did do an MPSCS initial test. My understanding is that the MPSCS recommends further end-user testing to ensure their expected coverage. And I personally believe this should include other manufacturers' products. I don't think that's been done yet. System maintenance, technology upgrades, software enhancements. so on and so forth. In addition to support from us locally here at Grand Traverse Mobile Communications, Kenwood Communications, which is who we represent, and the MPSCS team, all the radios that are approved to be used on the system are supported by them. So the MPSCS system also supports the Kenwood product. We were given an hour to present our radio solution here recently, and we were given 15 minutes for testing. And I just don't think that's sufficient to adequately prove what these products can do. They really need to get out in the field with the users. And the cost savings is significant. There's nothing unique about the Kenwood products that would make them less susceptible to or less compatible with the new consoles that Central has purchased, the MCC 7500s. The radios are as compatible with that console as the Motorola product. We did offer some of those products to go out when the testing was performed, and we were not given an opportunity to do that. And just to end on this, Jason mentioned the alternative. I believe Jason did the simulcast, or the alternative solution to the simulcast is that the state is currently testing a 800 megahertz pager. Just looking at some of the numbers in the documentation earlier today, I believe that simulcast system was about $430,000. We estimate that was $457,000. We estimate the pagers would cost about 2/3 of that. And if you were using pagers on the state system, my understanding is, Brad might have to address this, is that they do not intend to charge user fees for pager use. So you could own pagers and not have the responsibility of maintaining this $457,000 simulcast system, which also will have significant recurring costs. The only other thing that I made a note on was the maintenance costs. I'm seeing a figure in there, and I don't know what it includes. I didn't look at the details, so forgive me on that, but I would encourage you to look into that. The radios that have been proposed, the Motorola's have been proposed to have a 5-year warranty on there, and I see a $52,000 a year, roughly, maintenance costs, and I just, from experience, I don't see how you could use up, those types of funds to maintain radios that were under warranty. You're talking about 500 and some odd hours, man hours at $100 an hour, and I don't see that. We currently service North Flight, Grand Traverse Metro, Grand Traverse Rural fire departments, Traverse City Fire Department. They all have Kenwood radios. These radios have had a track record of being solid. We've been there to support them where needed, and we would like to be given an opportunity to show our wares on this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe?
I can quickly respond to Mr. Carlton's comments. I work with Harold quite often on different various things. I respect him and his opinion, but I will rebut on a few things, or at least clarification from our perspective. We did bring in the hands-on, the evaluations of the radio products, the feel, the touch, the noise, the audio quality, the noise canceling abilities, things of that nature. The technical subcommittee collectively came to the conclusion that the audio quality of the Motorola products were much superior to that of the Kenwoods and the E.F. Johnsons that were tested. Obviously, when you're talking about communications, audio quality is key. And if the audio quality is no good, you're not going to have, you're defeating the purpose of anything you're trying to accomplish. So we're collectively sound in that decision. We think that is the best way to go, and we're going to stick with that unless somebody's going to go against that decision now.
The 800 megahertz pager that he's referencing, that's a variable in here, and that's why we're asking for a commitment of the $457,000 to fund a solution. The technical team probably needs to come back. They do need to come back and look at that 800 megahertz solution, see if that's a viable solution, see if the beta testing produces a viable solution. Obviously, at this point, we're in no position to say that that's going to be the thing of the future. The VHF paging solutions have been around forever. Like Harold referenced, a lot of communities and departments are still using that as their primary method for alerting, and it's rock solid. So we don't know if we need to do that. What we do know is that we need a commitment from you to invest in something that's either an enhancement to what we have or the 800 megahertz solution. That's a different manufacturer altogether, known as Unication, not a Motorola product. Reference the coverage testing, the Michigan Public Safety Communication Testing Team. It is a Motorola backbone. It is a Motorola product. They test with Motorola radios for that purpose. The MPSCS does allow these other manufacturers to come in, test their product on their system, and if it meets the standard, they then approve it. There's hundreds of these approved. There's only a handful other than Motorola that are used. I know of a county recently that decided to move away from the Kenwoods to invest in the Motorola. I hate to say it, I firmly believe that the Motorola solution and the brand is the only one that's going to be effective and that's going to make Grand Traverse County first responders safe. And I think I covered everything that he had covered, unless I missed something. Okay.
Yeah.
I might be back.
Might be back.
Theo Weber, Chief Grand Traverse Rural Fire Department. I'm here on apparently Commissioner Kropa's request. I too supported the surcharge personally and endorsed it for the reasons I thought it was going to be used for, and that was to fix our problem. Our problem is the radio system, not only in this building, but in the field. You got to have a sender and a receiver. It can't just work on one side of that. Our territory, the one that I'm responsible for, covers 8 townships, 320 square miles of this county and parts of Kalkaska County. I have 26 mutual aid agreements on all sides of this county with every one of our neighbors, from the north, west, south, east, every county that borders us. We work with those partners. We've got to be able to communicate with them. And that 30% that doesn't work, currently, it's all in my territory. So my percentage is much higher than 30% that doesn't work. And believe me, it's a very uncomfortable feeling out there when you're calling for help and you can't get it. So I endorse using this surcharge money for the MPSCS system, the 800 megahertz system, to fix the total solution, not parts of it. And that includes the portable radios, mobile radios in the field. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else wishing to speak at this time?
Greg Bird, Emergency Management Coordinator for Grand Traverse County, and also the sitting chair of your 911 Board of Directors. In January, when I was elected the chair, Commissioner Kropa had brought back a message to the board that tasked us with putting together a comprehensive program, use of surcharge, that not only would greatly assist and increase the capability and communications of our first responders, but also fix some capital needs and some infrastructure needs within the 911 center. And not only to put a proposal together that was all-encompassing of every public safety agency, but also be fiscally responsible. And those two words are something near and dear to my heart. That since I've worked in government for 20-some years, it always seems to be the wishes to be fiscally responsible. I feel collectively over the year and even prior to that, that's something that we have worked on. During the process of this with all of the public safety agencies, many of you may know or may not know that currently, to some extent, every agency, it's up to them to purchase, install, and supply their own radio equipment and their own radios. And this system, with all the ones I've seen in the United States, is one of the only ones that has a hodgepodge of different radios and manufacturers on the current system. So to come together collectively in short order and agree upon an entire package in a radio system and have faith within the 911 board, the public safety departments, and the county commissioners and the individual entities has been a monumental and unprecedented task for this county and the 911 board. And pleased as a representative and leader of that board to say that we have done that with this presentation that we've given to you. We did test 3 manufacturers of radios with all public safety agencies, and as Jason alluded to, it was a unanimous decision of those agencies and the board to present it to you tonight, what we have. And it goes so much more than just buying radios. It's a project management team. It's a management team working in conjunction with the 911 upgrades to make sure, because this is a highly sensitive upgrade with technologies and radios, to work with all the agencies to present a competent install and removal of old equipment if they want. And on top of that, enter an agreement for each agency to have skin in the game with this system. That is the maintenance fees that you see. That maintenance fee was simply taken how much an annual radio Motorola contract would cost. We divide it by the amount of users that a department has, and it gives them skin in the game and pays into a managed equipment fund for maintenance, for installs of radios in new vehicles. Down the road for batteries, down the road to start cycling and buying some new radios so that in 10 years we're not stuck with 800 users to buy at one time. It's a managed project that the users that pay into that will vote on how those monies are spent, to start it immediately so that there can be a fund balance there available to the users that are doing it. There's other things. You can program these radios over the air instead of having to physically touch them, but there's a cost associated with that. So it was an agreement between the agencies that will be formalized when this is approved moving forward. One last thing that I'll say, on page 114 of your packet for this project, there's a breakdown of the amount of users on the system throughout the state. And that screamed out loudly to me that 75,441 users on the state system, 72,457 users use Motorola products. That's over 90-some% of the users on the system. So I appreciate listening to Jason, and I appreciate all the effort that our public safety partners have instilled in this. Peninsula Fire Chief could not be here due to other commitments and meetings, and he did not have time to submit a letter. He firmly 100% supports this project for Peninsula Fire Department. EMS also had conflicts tonight. On a whole, the county EMS liaison director was unavailable, as well as their representative to the board because they're doing training. But the collective EMS group for Grand Traverse County supports this project as well. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Chief.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jim Teller, Chief for the City of Traverse City. I live at 220 West 13th right here in town. I've been in the fire service 35 years now. But I don't know, son, your hair hasn't turned gray. I don't understand it. But I remember the days of the low-band portables with the antennas about 3 foot long that would get stuck in the doors. And
pull it up.
Yeah, when you leave the engine, you slam the door and there goes your radio. And all the other advancements along the way. What I like to illustrate is not so much between the Motorola and the Kenwood, because Harold's right, we've used Kenwoods for years. Before that, we used GEs until they went out. And but I'm more excited about the technology that the 800 megahertz brings, specifically 2 things. One, the radio, when it's assigned to a firefighter, in our case, that's an individual serial number matched to that name. When they're on a scene, whether they're in a structure, in a basement, during a wildfire situation, that firefighter simply has to, if he's in trouble, reach down, either on his radio or on a shoulder mic, and press a little orange button. And that alert goes right to the dispatcher. That person's name pops up on the screen. I know where they are in a fire ground for the most part, But if they can't talk, and they can only click their mic or hit that button, we know where to find them and we know how to get them. That to me is tremendous. I remember the days when there were only 2 portable radios on a fire scene, and those were the officers. There's a lot of yelling on the fire ground, a lot of near misses. Everybody at my department has a radio because it equals safety. Knowledge is safety. When they hear mayday or when they hear evacuate, we'll be able to contact Central as incident command and say hit an evacuation tone. And that screams at all the firefighters, get out of the building, go through a window, whatever you need to do, get out of that building because the roof's coming down. Those types of things will become a reality if we make this step. The other thing is that some things that are being worked on out there that paves the future for Central Dispatch to be able to receive a text and a picture. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine, somebody at home alone and somebody's trying to kick their door in and all they can do is text? And that goes right to Central, that can be sent right to law enforcement, comes up on their screen in their patrol car, and they can get there in a quick fashion and take care of business. Those are the things that I'm excited about, some of the safety aspects. I support this, and I hope you will too. Thank you.
Chris Clark, Captain, Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Office. We support this system too, not only for the interoperability with the surrounding counties, the state police, but also this is the system to move to enhance the safety of the officers on the road. This is the one to go to. Thanks.
Good evening, Commissioners. Pat Parker, 1470 Fairwood Drive in East Bay Township. And I'm going to echo what my peers have said tonight as well. But probably the biggest thing is what Captain Clark just said, is interoperability. It's the ability for all of us in public safety to be able to talk to each other. I know there's a motion on the floor. You guys are ready to take some action. But we at Metro, when we go out into the field, especially on search and rescues, when we're out on the water, anywhere out in the single track to Pierre Marquette Forest, we do take our equipment out there. And yes, they are Motorola equipment, they're E.F. Johnson's equipment, and they're Kenwood's equipment. And yes, they do work on the system. One of the big things, though, has to do with portables and mobiles. Our mobiles are the units that are in the trucks. They're hooked to a real nice antenna. Yes, we can get pretty good coverage, at least in our 3 townships of Acme, East Bay, and Garfield. However, it's when you have a portable in your hand and you're in a burning building or in a basement or in this building or the Grand Traverse Resort or the hockey rink is where we have problems. And when we tested this system back in December, we had some phenomenal coverage in those types of buildings. Yes, if you're in the basement of the Grand Traverse Resort or in the basement of Munson Hospital, you're going to have problems getting out, but there's also devices that you can put in those buildings to allow your portables to get out to the system. We here at Metro, over the past 5 years, have invested about $45,000 of our citizens' money into our system just because the county was not in a position to make those changes. And so we've upgraded to a digital system, seeing that it was going to be state-of-the-art. And the problem with that is that we have problems talking to some of our own fire departments. I think the big thing for us and for our close to 70 firefighters is the fact that when they're off duty, they have to be able to be paged. Cellular is getting close, but there's not 100% coverage. So the simulcast solution is what's on the table right now. I'm really excited to hear about the 800 megahertz paging solution that potentially we would not have to go to old technology, a VHF simulcast system. We could go with an 800 system that's been presented. We already covered the maintenance. It isn't really maintenance per se of fixing the equipment that we would have. It would be mics and batteries and also a fund to repair and also install. And lastly, I do want to recognize Harold and GT Mobile. We do have Kenwood radios and E.F. Johnson radios, and there is a statement about service after the sale, and we do get excellent service after the sale from them. So I know that's a difficult decision on what we do and what brand we look at tonight. So thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, committee. My name is John Bradley. I am the area sales manager for Kenwood here in Michigan. I'm here to support my dealer, Harold Carlton from Grand Traverse Mobile. We've heard many, many compelling arguments this evening about the proposed system, and I applaud your efforts. My only question is, I know that there was some testing done in December, but there was also a 15-minute evaluation done a few months ago. Is that adequate time to determine that this was an adequate solution? It possibly is. I would just want the opportunity to be heard this evening. I appreciate that. And the other thing is the value that we can provide with the Kenwood product. We have new technology, the NX 5000 series that's been introduced. It's been supported and approved by the MPSCS, and it's new. We've just received the approval in the last few months. We have Osceola County sheriffs on that system. We just delivered a system to the Sioux Locks. So our numbers are quite small in comparison to Motorola because there's been a huge head start with Motorola. But we would love the opportunity to present our case and offer a bid to you. And I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioners, further comments before we vote? Dan?
I hope this passes, and if it does, it kind of gives me the chills to see this, how this kind of stuff we should be doing for our community. I want to thank you, Elisa. You've been very helpful to our community in this, and you deserve a medal if this passes.
No, I just want people to get first responders there safely.
Keep in mind, one of those first responders is her son.
This is true.
Hope it passes, and we owe you.
Well, this is why I was elected, and if it does pass, I feel so much better. I feel so much better. I've been carrying this for 8 months now.
I'm a doctor, and those are my favorite words. I feel so much better.
I just want to thank the voters for trusting us to make the right decision, and I'm looking forward to seeing the vote that I believe will be the right decision.
Further comments? Bud?
Yeah, you touch on, we keep mentioning about, when the first responder gets there. And we've mentioned several times when the undersheriff was in Kingsley and had that incident, that could have very well have been bad. That could have ended very badly. But the interoperability, all my 20 years in the Coast Guard, there were many missions we were flying and working with other agencies, and it was hit and miss if you could talk to them then. So I know the problems you go to now when you're working together, and it would be nice to have a system that can work with ease, like you would think they would.
I was very surprised when I found out about the current state of our 911 system. I was even more surprised when our previous administrator pulled it from the budget. So, and another thing I don't think that people realize is we're talking about every single fire, EMS, and police agency is on board with this. And as the only girl on this board, in this group of guys with uniforms, it has been amazing to me to watch how they've worked together and set aside other differences because they all know that this is the best thing for the citizens and for their employees. And I want to thank all of them. It's been a pleasure being on that board. And this project is proof of exactly what we can do when we have the ability to work together.
I'm disappointed that we at least haven't been given the opportunity to see what the price would be for a Kenwood system, if in fact it is used throughout. Every other time we're voting on automobiles, snowmobiles, there's different quotes for the product. This is a sizable project. The hardware is a sizable amount. And I think we would be doing a disservice to the community to at least not have an opportunity to see that other price. Northlight's using the equipment, the Kenwood equipment. I don't know how many years Motorola's been.
They're not using it on 800, Ron. That's the difference.
No, right.
Yeah.
I know they're not using it on 800, but well, okay. They're not using it on 800 here.
Right.
because we don't have 800 service here, I'm assuming. But if the equipment is suitable and if they had truly a 15-minute trial, I don't know. I just have a hard time just seeing one price and going with it.
Jason, can you? Yeah, we put it through the committee process is what we did it, because it was so detailed that it would have been hours and hours with the Board of Commissioners of this kind of presentations. So they utilized the committee process appropriately at the central board with the technical committee.
And I just want to reiterate, we gave all brands equal time. Okay, so the Motorola folks had the same, a lot of time as Harold and his group to come in and do the same exact thing. Every public safety agency in this room has also taken it upon themselves to go out and explore the options, talk to their peer groups throughout the state, users of the system, and they have collectively came back with the same opinion, that Motorola product is a superior product to that of the E.F. Johnson and or the other Kenwood product. I don't know what more to say than that. I think if we went through the process, we'd come back to the same result, because quality is key here. And when I talk about quality, I mean the audio. That's why Motorola has the foothold, the stronghold they have on it. It's not because they're cheaper, because they're not. It's because they have a better product, in the opinion of our evaluation process.
And they have, I mean, I don't know how many years Motorola has been in that radio business, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. They've been in business a long time too. It's just a matter of what you come up with at the end of the day. And to go with something that's ineffective or not adequate would be a disservice. That's the conclusion we came to. And that's one that everyone in this room would agree to.
Okay. Anyone else? Bonnie, will you read the motion, please?
Moved by Max Bauer, seconded by Crawford, to recommend approval to sign into a membership agreement with the Michigan Public Safety Communications System and review and negotiate a contract for the purchase of the Motorola brand 800 megahertz portable and mobile radio units as proposed, and commit up to $450,397 for the funding of an enhanced simulcast paging solution.
Having heard the motion, is there any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Lathrop?
Hell yes.
I don't think you're allowed to say that. Max Bauer?
I'm sorry?
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Klaus?
No.
Crawford?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Kropa?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
We will move forward.
Thank you.
The Hall of Justice chiller modules. Dean, are you handling that? Or
Yes,
Danny?
but I have Danny here, our Facilities Management Director, because he understands these things far better than I do. And you won't be offended if any of you leave. I know it's quarter after 8.
Going a lot longer
You
than we
won't
thought.
offend us if you get up and leave. But we're recommending.
We're leaving now.
I should have been more specific than who I was referring to. But we talked briefly about this at the board meeting last month, but Danny and I are recommending that you authorize us to proceed with this work, and I'm going to let Danny explain why it's important to start this sooner rather than later.
Currently, our cooling capacity at the Hall of Justice is about 3/4, or about 75%. The other 25% went down, and we do believe it went down during that storm that we had, and it went down by lightning. Now, we can't prove that yet until we take the machine apart and find out exactly what we got, but I just want to read you a little statement here that my service tech wrote. What caused this unit to fail? The problem may have been caused by a power surge, as all 4 compressors had damaged internal windings, and the phase monitor and crankcase heaters are also damaged. We will have no idea if there are other problems until we install the new compressors and start them up. additional troubleshooting may be required at that time. So we don't know the answer, but we at the health department had 2 problems during that same storm, and it took out the control package for the brand-new generator. Well, it's a year old, 2 years old. And it also took out the control package for the fire panel. And that was caused, we know that was caused by a direct strike in the parking lot, right? So, it's a Trane unit. We would like Trane to be the installer. They got the equipment to do it, and they assured me that they could do it quickly. We did go out, and I got some labor figures from local contractor, and they said that it could be 6 to 8 weeks before they get to it. And that seems to be the way of the world right now in construction. It's a good thing. Everybody's extremely busy. But Trane, because it's their equipment, and they have the ability to take the new compressors right off the shelf, they think they can be real quick to get this done. So that's why I'm asking for the approval.
And we do know that the compressors are available. We don't have to
Right.
wait for them to be manufactured. They're in inventory in Texas, I believe.
Somewhere, yeah, in the south.
And we do have this in the budget.
There are funds within your facilities fund. We do have a fund balance there. It would require a budget adjustment, but that's why we have those dollars available.
Thank you. And that include I remember, I watched the video, I was on vacation, but so that includes the crane and all that stuff?
Well,
if you need it?
I was wrong about that. I thought that it did, but we're not certain that we'll need a crane.
Need it, okay.
But I was incorrect.
We may be able to take it apart. There was 2 compressors that are hooked together, and it's done in the factory. And once we see the actual physical unit, we may be able to take it apart and carry it up there, believe it or not, up on the roof, so.
As long as you don't have to climb up that 24-inch ladder, or that
No.
18-inch ladder through that 24-inch hole, you'll be good.
There's a stairway that goes up there.
Lisa?
I'll make the motion to enter into the agreement with Trane Building Services to perform the necessary repairs at the Hall of Justice effective immediately.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Cropus, supported by Lathrop. Further discussion? A couple things that I guess I'd like to mention. I note that in this information, it says that the cost will be in the amount of $24,671.65. But I can't help but notice that I heard in your report and in your letter from your technician that there may be hidden damage that we are not aware of.
Well, we don't know that for sure.
You know, so we just need to understand that there may be other costs associated with this that we didn't have. You know, the questions that I have for you are the same as I had for Dean a week ago when we talked about this. Number one, is there any warranty on this equipment?
No.
It hasn't been, doesn't seem like it's been that old, although time slips away from me. And secondly, can we file a claim if it is a damage as a result of weather? We should be able to file a claim with MMRMA.
I would think so.
For some of the costs for that. I know that when my home was hit with lightning and fried the well, my insurance company, my homeowner's insurance, paid for the replacement of that pump and the services for it. I had a deductible, but it still would, you know, possibly pay us back some of it. So we should ask that question.
We will do that because, yeah, I mean, it's until we get into the project, we won't know, but
Right.
that would be very
Absolutely.
prudent for us to do.
I guess my point would be, I would put MMRMA on notice, you know, as soon as possible, that we believe that this damage is a result of a natural effect, and therefore, you know, we will be filing a claim for that, assuming that the results of the testing, you know, justify that claim.
Yes.
I will do that. Danny's pretty busy right now, but I will take care of that.
Okay, further questions, Bob?
Yeah, to tag on to that, if you find that it's not a lightning strike and it is some other voltage surge, you may be able to go to you got Light and Power is the provider here?
Yes.
You may be able to go to them and see if they can correlate any surges in their system And I know with consumers, we usually end up paying. So they could pay some of that too. So that's an option also.
Any other comments? This has been asked for immediate effect, so Bonnie, if you would roll call, please.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Klaus,
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kropa,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Wheelock.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, unfinished business, the job administrator job description, the county administrator job description update. That was sent to us under separate package. Does anyone have any comments, questions? Chris?
Just to let you know, that will be on the agenda for discussion at RMNA next week.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, moving forward, new business, request for contract services. I'm assuming this is the consulting services agreement
It is.
between Grand Traverse County and Tom Menzel.
Yes.
Okay. Someone like to, I guess someone like to explain to me how we got to a contract agreement? I didn't know we were negotiating a contract yet.
I had some discussions with our planning director, John Syke, regarding the results-based budgeting team. And originally, you may recall, we talked at the board level of putting commissioners on John's team. And John felt that there was a better way. And the board does need to be involved with results-based budgeting. And the better way would be to have a liaison between the county board and John's team. And I spoke with, I did ask board approval if I could speak with the chairman of the Beta Board, and I did so. And the Beta Board gave me permission to speak with Mr. Menzel. And John was fine with this arrangement, and is fine with this arrangement, and he can certainly speak to that if you'd like him to. So here's the agreement, and I would greatly appreciate it. I'll even make the motion before we have a discussion. I will move to enter into the consulting services agreement on page 141 of our packet. With Mr. Menzel. And just so the public understands, the cost will be $1 a month.
I will support that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have further discussion? Bob?
Yeah, I just want to make it clear before you go file any charges that I didn't know about this ahead of time, so I do support it.
I'm going to also state that I did not know about it.
I didn't either. I read it in the newspaper.
I did read it in the newspaper, and I never read the newspaper.
I hate to admit that, but I did.
Well, it's kind of interesting that none of us knew about this, but yet we got to this point.
Well, we did give her permission before.
We gave her permission to have a discussion with Mr. Menzel about results-based budgeting. I don't know when we gave her permission to direct Paula Segala to meet with Mr. Menzel and negotiate a contract.
We gave John Syke permission to lead the results-based budgeting team.
We did not give him rights or authority by which to negotiate a contract.
I said, quote unquote, you pick whoever you want. Did I not say that? You were standing right at the podium.
I want to make one thing perfectly clear. I have absolute utmost respect for both John Syke and Tom Menzel. I'm not opposed to this contract at all. I'm just opposed at how we got to this contract.
Well, I guess I'm confused then. So then you would rather them come and say, all right, we're going to talk about going into a contract, and then go through that motion and then come back with the same thing.
I would like to have at least had a discussion about whether we were going to enter into a consulting contract.
And we have that now.
This is what we're doing now, Commissioner Wheelock.
I agree. I think that I was taught by Bob Cooney that a lot of times how you have a discussion, how you start it, maybe you don't even believe in it, but you make a motion. It gets seconded, Now we have the discussion. It's happening. By the way, I really support it. We are moving into results-based budgeting. Our county is in trouble, and it's much bigger than people realize. We really do need Tom Menzel's learned, experienced, successful advice. He's the only one in the community that really has done this successfully. He's a turnaround expert. We need him. So I'm supporting this motion, and I'm encouraging all my fellow commissioners to do the same.
Further, John?
Good evening. Good evening, John Syke, Planning Director for Grand Traverse County. I just wanted to clarify, I think from being that my name was mentioned, is that my, all that I was doing was putting together a staff committee. And it was suggested that Tom could be a go-between between the committee and the board. That way the board can focus on its activities and there wouldn't be the need to have a commissioner liaison to the staff committee. So that's
But at that point, there was no agreement with Mr. Menzel to even be part of our staff or part of the county as an employee, correct?
Well, not in terms of involved on that particular committee at that time. I mean, it was talked about as Tom being a go-between between the board and so forth. So.
Other comments? Chris?
Commissioner Wheelock, I will take full responsibility for this. This was my idea. No, I did not share it with everyone. I felt that one discussion was all we need. We don't need to beat it to death. And so if you have any questions, here's your opportunity. I'd just soon not add to my lawyer fees.
The RMNA chair, which is me, I do appointments. And when we discussed a results-based budgeting team, I specifically said, because you had asked to be on it, I said, wait, I want to wait. And I said, John Syke would be in charge of it, and you pick who you want. I did not ask to be a part of the staff selection. Did I ask you anything at all? I wasn't involved at all. And John contacted me and said, I've selected my team, and he wanted to go over it with me. I met with him for 15 minutes. He chose his staff members, and we decided at that time it was unnecessary for commissioners to be on the results-based budgeting team. This should be staff-led. It's their jobs. We move in and out as elections go, but the staff is here. So at that point, if it then seemed reasonable to have a liaison between the board, because typically all boards in the county have a county commissioner liaison, this to me seems reasonable and logical. And I know that sometimes it's hard to absorb reason and logic in the government, but we moved forward in a very logical manner. And the fact that I read about it in the paper, I thought, oh, okay. Questioned whether it was true. Had to ask someone because you never know. But that's how I found out as well. And it seemed reasonable and logical to me. And that's why I'm going to be voting for this, because Mr. Menzel brings reason and logic into the government.
The common sense.
Tom Menzel, 9704 Edgewood Avenue, Traverse City, Michigan, 49685. I can't really address the process you go through. That's really up to you. But if there are any questions that you have for me or any concerns or things that you'd like me to address regarding what the role would be, I'd be happy to do that. This was a good chance to, maybe you'd increase my salary. I could double it very easily.
Did the prosecutor's office look at this?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
And I truly understand that in a consultant's role, I'm not an elected official. I have no authority. I simply have some experience that might add value. You know, I was born and raised in this community, and I'm all about leaving the best footprints I can. So if I could help in some way, help the process go forward and add value to the community through what you do, I'm happy to do that. But I certainly am not trying to do anything other than help in some way.
I'm very thankful, Tom, for your community service.
We have a 2-week, in the contract, a 2-week cancellation clause. If you'd like to move that to 24 hours, I'm fine with that as well. So I'm very flexible on that.
It's $1 a month, Tom.
Well, I wasn't even going to ask for that, but I was told to make it a legal contract, there had to be some monetary amount, so that's why we picked the $1.
I appreciate your willingness to assist in a process that you are familiar and successful with.
I've done it in the nonprofit area, and I've done it in the public sector, but I also have done it in the political sector too, as an alderman, city treasurer, and a mayor. I was in elected office for 34 years, and I understand the process, and I can help in some way, but I can tell you when I did it, it was 3 years and 3 months to really get where we needed to be, and it's not an easy process. But, I admire you for wanting to change and look at doing things better, and so I felt obligated. If I could help in some way, I'm willing to do that. And I know that when you say, be careful if advice is free, I thought $1 would give it some value. So, if you have any questions or anything, I'd be happy to address them.
Anyone else? Bob?
No, I also appreciate you stepping forward. I don't know if you want to be tied in with this group or not, but you might want to get a minion at some point. No, and I think with your experience in this, it'll help us greatly, hopefully keep out of the weeds and move forward, because we do know it's a long path, and anytime we can save when we're working on it by your experience, it'll help us greatly. So.
Thank you.
Carol?
I think that anytime you have a difficult project in your home life or your work or anything, I know I ask around. If I need a roof on my house, I ask around. Who knows a guy? Do you know a guy? A roof guy. And you want to get the best person that you can, somebody who has a good reputation, somebody who is respected in what they do. And that's what we have. And thank you very much for doing this for us. I know Mr. Menzel's name came up every time. We'd say, who can help us? Who can do this not do this for us, but help us do this. Help us get on the right track. And this is the person that can do this for us and help us get at least headed in the right direction of where we'd like to go.
The creative journey of change is not an easy one. Really, the easy part is laying out the plan. What you do is you lay out a well thought out plan, and usually the consultants leave. And the hard part is this alien culture that has been doing it a certain way for 20 years and is going to find creative ways to sabotage it every step of the way. I've been through that, and you can't stop all of it, but at least I know some of the pitfalls and some of the problems that can come up. And so I think, in discussions in terms of the staff which is going to implement it, I can probably make you aware of some of the things that might be coming up and maybe save you some pain. And of course, in doing so, probably get the process moving a little quicker. So if I can do that, I'm more than happy to do that. It's my community.
Thank you.
Further comments? Roll call vote, please.
Did you say roll call, please?
Please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know you were fanning yourself with him.
I was, holy cats. I can't help it. Klaus?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Kropa?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, I had 2 items under new business. The first one, I was surprised and I guess a bit disappointed when I received a call from Mike Walton this morning that despite the fact that the Board of Commissioners appointed last week a committee of commissioners, Max Bauer, Crawford, and myself, to meet with the auditor to talk about a financial analysis, that apparently Commissioners Max Bauer and Crawford saw fit this morning to meet with not only the auditor but the representative of MERS to talk about our financial liabilities without my being made aware of that motion, or without being made aware of that meeting. Dean Bott, the finance director, was not aware of that meeting. The administrative secretaries weren't made of that meeting. I don't quite understand how we got here. Chris?
You were misinformed, Commissioner Wheelock. It was a meeting regarding the audit. I've had 3 meetings with Mr. Peacock regarding the county's audit. Primarily, and by the way, I've always been told that any commissioner at any time, because it is the county board's audit, it is not the finance department's audit, it is the county board's audit that is presented to the state of Michigan. I've always been told that the county board members can meet with the auditor at any time and ask questions, and that's what I've done. What I presented this morning was a request for 2 separate types of pro forma statements, balance sheets actually, balance statements, that will be presented at our July 15th audit meeting. I'm more than happy to schedule a meeting right now for our independent financial analysis discussion with Mr. Peacock. Are you available next week?
Sure.
All right. What days?
I don't have a calendar right here. You tell me what day you're meeting, and I'll make myself available.
Okay. Let's.
Please. Cherry Festival week, can we do it the week after?
The week after? Are you okay with the week after?
When you schedule this meeting, I will make sure that I make myself available for the meeting.
Okay. Let's try, just for fun, hang on a minute, I'm bringing up the county's calendar. Let's try to do it. How does the 14th work for you? It's a Tuesday. We've got audit committee at 9:30. We're going to be here anyway.
I have another meeting at 3, but anywhere in between there is fine.
Okay. I will try to, we'll tentatively schedule it for the 14th. I will contact Mr. Peacock, and we will, I will get a time, hopefully, from his schedule. And
I would ask if possible to either make this an early meeting or a late meeting. Middle of the day is very difficult for me.
All righty.
Whatever, whatever has to happen, whatever has to happen, I will make sure it's available.
Right after audit committee would be fine. Right after audit.
Okay.
After claims, that would be fine. So say that's like 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock?
Okay.
10 o'clock. We'll try for 10 o'clock, and if Mr. Peacock is unavailable, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Can I say something? How do I put it? I went to this meeting. It was not a surreptitious thing. It was, Christine told me that she was meeting with the MERS representative to get some good figures, and wondered if I would like to sit in on that. I'm very interested in the pension obligations and the effects that they have on the balance sheet. So that is why I went. It was in no way presented as about the financial analysis, which is what the 3 of us are supposed to determine the scope and what we want to ask our auditors to provide to us separately from the audit. So I think that it's possible the media, because the media was there, that he sort of misconstrued the purpose of that meeting.
Come on now.
I was trying to be nice. I believe he was unaware of the actual purpose, the stated purpose of the meeting. The financial analysis came up in a few statements, but that was not the purpose of the meeting, and it was not discussed, the scope of the work that they're going to do for us. So it was not, as it was presented in the media. He did misconstrue the whole purpose of the meeting.
Well, I do know that obviously...
You could have called and asked me.
I do know that we saw fit to meet with the MERS representative, the auditor, with 2 commissioners, and you saw fit to invite Mr. Menzel, prior to the contract. So and he was in attendance also. I guess if we were going to talk about financial analysis in any fashion, I should have at least been made aware that the meeting was taking place. Bob?
Yeah, I'm getting tired of this.
Yep.
Of your bull in the china cabinet closet, or whatever you want to call it here, attitude. You already cost me a lot of money with an attorney because you had your head up your butt over the other stuff. Yes. And you're continuing it now. I personally think you should resign from this committee so we can move forward and get the stuff that you messed up in this county for years straightened up.
I got to get a babysitter today to watch my kids so I could go to a state police criminal investigation with my hired criminal defense attorney. Because instead of calling me or asking me or emailing me or even waiting for an open meeting, you chose to be the first person to ever file criminal OMA investigation against your fellow board members. And that's exactly what Mike Walton knows. And you got played today like a chump and fell right for it. I read the article and was like, I can't believe this. You didn't call Commissioner Maxbauer. You didn't call Commissioner Crawford. Instead, you're in the paper talking about how you were left out of something that had absolutely nothing to do with you. Commissioner Johnson is correct. How are we going to move forward when they know that you are the chump of the board and will call you every time that they can to get a Crawford or Maxbauer versus Wheelock article? It's the second one in 2 days. We look like a ridiculous group of fools. Meanwhile, I will be looking forward to handing you my criminal lawyer's bill, along with the other rest of us that had to pay because MMRMA doesn't cover criminal investigations, only civil ones, and I'm certain you knew that when you chose the unusual choice to go and file criminal complaint against your fellow board members without even speaking to them. This is where we sit. Commissioner Wheelock, I don't want to hear your response to it. I want an apology.
You're probably not going to get that, so I'm going to tell you this. The way that process happened is I contacted Bob Cooney and as our civil counsel and asked him how could we have possibly gotten to this decision with the termination of Mr. Benda without having a public discussion. We had no public discussion. So the question was, did you have a private discussion? 2 weeks later, Dan come and asked me if we'd have had the discussion that we had that night, would I have asked the question then? And I told him I didn't know that. I didn't have an answer to that. I believe that was the response I gave you, Dan. Is that correct? That I don't know that I would have asked the question if the explanation had been given at the night that we terminated Mr. Benda's contract.
No, in fact, that's not what you said to me. You told me that if we'd had that discussion, you would have not made
I probably would not have asked for the investigation.
You even said it when we followingly had a discussion that made you happy.
Right.
Okay? I thought that discussion was fine. My feeling was that had you been, I'm not going to say mean things. All of us had plenty to say about Dave way before that vote was made, months before. And why weren't you listening? Why was it such an amazement to you that this board could individually and independently come to that decision? Instead, suspect us of criminal activity. I'm offended by it. So, no, that's not what we said in that truck. I ask you if you would now, knowing the truth, withdraw your complaint, and you said no. So, hey.
And in all honesty, I contacted the Michigan State Police the next day, and they told me no, not to withdraw the complaint. Mr. Cooney gave me the same advice. So it is their investigation, not mine, and I never named any individual commissioners whatsoever when I made the complaint.
I think the action is unconscionable.
Carol?
The problem that I have is to be continually accused of doing these behind-the-scenes things that are that you consider improper or that you're not informed. I honestly don't see why today you couldn't have called and asked. What was the purpose of the meeting to mine and Christine's knowledge, what was the purpose? Several months ago, why couldn't you call one or any of us and say, what happened here? What's going on? You're allowed to talk, we're allowed to talk to each other. You could have called any one of us and asked us. And I'm also offended that you feel that possibly you didn't call any of us because you thought that without a police officer and a lawyer, we weren't going to tell the truth. And I am offended by that you somehow felt that I had to sit in a room with a criminal defense attorney and a Michigan State Police investigator in order for me to tell the truth, when you could have just called me and asked me. I mean, there's no reason for me to say anything but the truth to you. All you have to do is ask. And I was terribly offended by that, and I'm terribly offended today that you began this discussion by saying that we somehow planned a meeting and purposely counted you out. The meeting wasn't something that you were a part of, and we did not purposely count you out.
I just asked the question if the ad hoc committee met with this morning without my notice.
And we did not.
You're
all we
already
need to know.
quoted in the paper as to your decision as to how you were treated, and then you decided to ask them in an open meeting. You are perpetually playing the role of the martyr, and the Record Eagle loves it. And we are not going to move forward as a team when we are divide and conquer by the outside citizens and the media. We are a team, and we want to do the best with the taxpayers' money. But it's really hard when I'm writing a check to my criminal defense attorney. Really hard, Sonny. Really hard. You caused undue damage to our personal reputations, and for me, my business reputation. That is unconscionable, as Dr. Lathrop said. You have walked into here with no remorse for your actions at all, no consequences. The five of us didn't discuss enough for you. And the consequence of that action is a hefty lawyer bill and a criminal investigation. What are your consequences for those actions? You damaged 5 people who you serve with because you didn't feel the need to even say something at the meeting. You never even said anything at the meeting, like, what are we doing? You didn't say a thing. You were coerced and manipulated and played by the media, as I've watched them do for years. Welcome to being the new martyr of Grand Traverse County. Now you can join us and apologize and be part of this team, or we will continue this. I would like to move forward as a team, and I am willing to forgive what you did.
We're moving forward. We've talked about the ad hoc committee meeting. The next item is Paula Segala's bill. Dean, would you distribute that, or do you want to comment about it?
I could do that, or could I make a suggestion? Sure. I think we've had a long day and a very tough meeting. It was I did not provide it. Commissioner Wheelock asked for a copy, and rather than hand it out now, which you would be seeing it for the first time, could I bring it back to our M&A next?
That's fine. And I made comments to this board, and I've made the comments to Paula personally. I have taken some discussion in the community about the fact that we've contracted with her for $600 for 5 hours worth of work a week. And when I talked to Dean the other day, and he's giving me numbers in the $6,000, $7,000 that we've spent, that's a long ways from even the $600 a week. So I want to know what services we are being billed for.
What? I don't know.
So we will provide for you before next week a detailed invoice from Ms. Segala, and we can discuss that at a future meeting. Okay. Second opportunity for public comment. Anyone wishing to make comment at this time? Seeing none. Commissioner committee reports? Chris?
I don't have necessarily a committee report. I had a meeting with Dave Garris last Friday. Dave is with Johnson Control. He asked me to join him for a cup of coffee. By the way, as a matter of record, I purchased my own cup of coffee. $3.40. I just about had a heart attack. One of the things Dave actually was there simply to tell me that he walked through the facilities. And Casey, who works for Danny Brown, took him through. And he said, I have to tell you, Chris, he said, Casey is an extremely sharp individual. And he said, Chris, he said, everything I saw was very well maintained. And that's why he asked me to have coffee with him. We did not discuss whether or not there would or could be a project for Grand Traverse County, but so I just wanted to share that.
And Casey's last name is Wise, Casey Wise, so just so we identify the appropriate employee.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? We have no need for a closed session. We stand adjourned.